Chapter 515. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The battle at Lingguan City was over. The attack started when the snow stopped at dusk and ended completely at dusk. The battle ended in less than 2 hours. The Gu army gathered all their superior forces and used their absolute advantage in numbers and combat power to defeat the 30,000 remaining soldiers of the previous dynasty. King Yi was shot and wounded. The prince consort brought 5,000 soldiers to escort him out of Lingguan City. Of the remaining 25,000 people, 5,000 died on the battlefield and 20,000 became captives. Most of these 20,000 captives were able-bodied men from the frontier fortress and various places. They were either followers of the living Buddha or members of the rebel army who had been coerced by King Yi. Of course, there were also some descendants of the nobles and landlords of the previous dynasty who held important positions under King Yi. The funny thing was that King Yi didn't take them with him when he abandoned the city and fled. Gu Chongqing was wearing a silver cloak and riding a tall horse that was also wearing silver armor. Behind him were the Gu cavalry in uniform. The infantrymen were left at the city gate to clean up the battlefield and form patrols to search for the remaining survivors of the previous dynasty. This wasn't the first time Lingguan City had been at war. The most terrifying thing was that it had been captured by the Chen army not long ago. That day was like today. A large number of Chen army broke through the checkpoint of Lingguan City and captured the defenders of Lingguan City. They had also ridden majestically on the long street. They captured women and able-bodied men when they saw them. They burned, killed, and plundered. There was nothing they wouldn't do. The flames of war rose again. Lingguan City was in a state of panic. All the doors and windows were tightly shut. When they heard the sound of horse hooves again, they didn't even see who had won. They all hid in their homes in fear. But the sound of horse hooves came closer and then farther away. There were no women's screams, no men's roars, and no soldiers breaking down doors to plunder. Finally, a brave lad quietly pushed open a door and peeked outside. He saw the Zhao nation's flag fluttering in the night and cold wind. He also saw the Gu army's flag protecting the Zhao nation's flag. "It's the Gu army!" he shouted. When the commoners heard that it was the Gu family army, they all had some hope. However, they didn't have the courage to immediately come to the long street. They also opened a crack in the door and looked outside. The Gu clan army walked from the west end of the long street to the east end of the long street, all the way in the direction of the governor's office. They did not disturb any of the people in the city, nor did they take away any sheep or chicken by the roadside. Their military discipline was strict, and they were full of righteousness. Gradually, commoners began to walk out of their homes. At first, there was only one, but later on, a large group of them slowly gathered. They curiously followed the Gu family army in the direction of the governor's office. At this moment, the governor's office was completely surrounded by the Gu family army. General Zhang searched the governor's office inside and out and found dozens of King Yi's aides. He also annihilated the thousands of Chen soldiers who did not manage to retreat from the city in time. When Gu Chongqing led the steel cavalry to the entrance of the governor's office, the commoners also followed. General Zhang suddenly escorted out a bald monk wearing a kasaya from a nearby residence. The monk was about 50 years old. He had a benevolent look, a broad heart, and a fat body. Many of the commoners recognized him. A woman exclaimed, "It's the living Buddha. They captured the living Buddha." Hearing the cries of astonishment from the commoners, the eyes of the bald monk, who was originally terrified, flashed. He straightened his back and said fearlessly, "Amitabha, good indeed. Benefactors, why are you committing such a great massacre in the city? *CK your mother's benefactor." Zhang can kick the bald monks but, causing him to fall flat on the ground. Fake monk. Swindling and deceiving. The living Buddha's reputation in Lingguan City was quite high. General Zhang's actions had undoubtedly angered a portion of the citizens. General Zhang didn't think it was the people's fault. After all, they were innocent. It was this shameless fake monk who colluded with King Yi and fooled the soldiers and people at the frontier fortress. Zhang Can wanted to vent all his anger on this fake monk, but he was stopped by Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing said faintly, "Stop." General Zhang cupped his hands and retreated to the side. "Yes, General." The fake monk was in so much pain that he cursed 3 times in his heart. However, he didn't dare to show it on his face. He simply sat cross-legged on the ground, Buddhist beads hanging from one hand. He made a Buddhist salute and said as if he was delivering all living beings from torment, Amitabha. Benefactors have killed too many people. My Buddha is merciful. I hope that benefactors will stop killing for no reason. How can you do this to the living Buddha? The living Buddha is a good person. He was sent by the Buddha to save us. You don't respect the living Buddha. You will suffer retribution. An old lady said with righteous indignation. General Zhang had a toothache. Old lady, open your eyes and take a look. This bald donkey is a fake. Which great master would collude with the rebel army and trap the people at the frontier fortress in the flames of war? And General Zhang almost blurted out what he had found out, but Gu Chongqing's words interrupted him in time. Gu Chongqing looked down at the living Buddha sitting on the ground and asked neither too fast nor too slow, "You said you are the living Buddha. Well, let me ask you, how many grades are there in the Diamond Sutra?" 32. The living Buddha said without hesitation. What is the 32nd grade? Do you remember? The fake monk sneered in his heart. How could he not know the Diamond Sutra if he wanted to pretend to be the living Buddha? He made a Buddhist salute and said slowly, "Subhuti, if someone uses the 7 treasures of the world to give alms, if there is a kind man or woman who has the heart of Subhuti and holds this sutra, or even the 4 verses of the Gatha, to be read and recited, and to speak for others, his blessing will surpass that of others." What is the meaning of speaking for others? Do not rely on the appearance. Why? All Dharma is like a dream, an illusion, a bubble or a shadow. It is like dew or lightning. It should be observed as it is. Look. He is a living Buddha. Another commoner said. Zhang Can's temper flared up. He couldn't help but retort, "Knowing a bit of Buddhist scriptures makes you a living Buddha. Then if I can recite 2 paragraphs of the 4 books and 5 classics, wouldn't I be the new top scorer? Then do you know that Shakyamuni once wrote a volume of Little Surangama Sutra? It was a sutra written by Shakyamuni when he was still in the royal family before his enlightenment. Can you say a few sentences from it?" The fake monk's expression froze for a moment. Generally, these small sutras were not popular Buddhist sutras. He was not a real monk, so how could he memorize all the Buddhist sutras? It was strange. He was obviously a reckless man who fought in wars. How could he know Buddhist scriptures? Did someone in your family become a monk? Or did he recite all the Buddhist scriptures backwards and recite them to you every day? Of course I know the Little Surangama Sutra. However, I rarely talk about this Buddhist scripture when I preach Dharma. Even if I say it, not many people have heard of it. If this benefactor were to accuse me of spouting nonsense, who would prove this poor monk's innocence? Haha, such a small trick. It was difficult for him. Gu Chongqing said again, "You are a living Buddha. You should have this scripture in your hands." The fake monk said without changing his expression, "The scripture has long been burned by your people." Zhang Can said angrily, "Nonsense. When did I burn your things?" Gu Chongqing looked at the fake monk with a calm and composed expression. So master admits that this Buddhist scripture exists in the world. As soon as this was said, the fake monk's expression froze again. Gu Chongqing said neither too fast nor too slow, "Master, do you know that there is no such Buddhist scripture in the world?" The Little Surangama Sutra did exist. But the Little Surangama Sutra was purely Gu Chongqing tricking him. Gu Chongqing looked at him lightly and said, "Before Shakyamuni was enlightened, he was just an ordinary person. How could he write Buddhist scriptures? Master is worshipped as a living Buddha. How could you not understand such a simple principle?" The fake monk was choked and speechless. Who said that those who led the army to war were all brainless? This kid was too cunning. He actually set a trap for him. Not all the people were believers of the living Buddha. There were still many rational people. When they saw the living Buddha give himself away, they couldn't help but say loudly, "You can't really be a fake monk, right?" The fake monk said fiercely, "I am a living Buddha, not a fake monk." "Then you don't even know Buddhist scriptures." The young man who had just insulted him continued, "That's..." Before the fake monk finished, Gu Chongqing waved his hand and several Gu army soldiers came over with a few women. The leading woman was about the same age as the fake monk. She was adorned with pearls and jade, which was a sharp contrast to the poor people who had experienced war. The women behind her were dressed like her, but they were younger than her. When the fake monk saw this group of people, he couldn't keep his face straight. He wanted them to shut up, but it was too late. "Master, please save us. They want to take us to the officials." The leading woman's call of "Master" completely removed the fake monk's cover. "Everyone, don't listen to her nonsense. I don't know them. I don't know what these people from the imperial court did, but they found a bunch of women to frame me. Amitabha, I've sinned, I've sinned. Father." Behind the women, a young child's voice sounded with a sobbing tone. There was more than one person. There were at least 7 or 8 of them. If it was possible that these women were hired by Gu Chongqing, then these children who all looked like living Buddhas couldn't have been hired to make up the numbers. There were many similar people in the world, but these people clearly had a frontier accent. There were only a few children in the frontier, and 7 or 8 of them looked like living Buddhas. Who would believe that they weren't his biological children? The fake monk didn't expect the Gu army to be so ruthless. Not only did they dig him out of the secret room, but they also found his family from the cellar. This time, he really couldn't clear his name. With both witnesses and evidence, Gu Chongqing left military advisor Xiao to take care of Lingguan City's affairs and sent General Zhang and 10,000 Gu army soldiers to guard the city. Then, Gu Chongqing quickly rushed back to Yuegu City with the rest of the troops. The Chen Kingdom's army really did attack Yuegu City at night. However, they encountered some problems on the way and encountered an avalanche, causing them to arrive 2 hours later than planned. At this time, Gu Chongqing had already rushed back with his army. Seeing that the situation was not good, the Chen Kingdom's army decisively withdrew. The Chen Kingdom's army had experienced 2 forced marches. If they turned around and attacked Lingguan City at this time, it would be like hitting a stone with an egg. Gu Chongqing wasn't worried about the situation in Lingguan City. He led the army into Yuegu City. The first thing he did was to go to the wounded barracks to find Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao once told him that if things went well, she would go to the governor's office to meet him. However, he didn't see her. She should have implemented the second plan, which was to bring the patients back to Yuegu City. When he came to the wounded barracks, he saw Dr. Song wearing an oiled paper gown, a mask, and gloves. Dr. Song usually doesn't wrap himself up so tightly. It seems that Gu Jiao and the plague patients have returned. It's good that they're back. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief. However, before he could finish heaving a sigh of relief, he saw Dr. Song walking towards him in confusion. "General Gu, didn't Dr. Gu come back with you?" Gu Chongqing was slightly startled. "Didn't she come back with those patients?" Dr. Song shook his head. "She didn't come back." The 2 men realized that something was wrong at the same time. Gu Chongqing's expression changed, and he called the 6 secret guards over. When he learned that Gu Jiao had gone to deal with the Chen Kingdom's experts alone, his heart sank. "That's not right," he said thoughtfully. "They're just chasing after a few plague patients. They won't send out the most powerful experts. As long as they're not the most powerful experts, Jiao Jiao won't be unable to come back. Unless..." Gu Chongqing suddenly thought of the death warrior by the prince consort's side who could defeat 3 dragon shadow guards. A chill ran down his spine. "General, everything is ready. The day after tomorrow, are we going to attack the north?" The left commander in charge of guarding ancient Moon City came over with a few marching bamboo slips. Halfway through his conversation with Gu Chongqing, he saw that Gu Chongqing acted as if he didn't hear him. He suddenly walked towards the stable, took out his mount, and mounted it without saying a word. The left commander chased after him, but his nose was splashed with snow. He wiped it away carelessly, looked at Gu Chongqing, and shouted, "General, where are you going so late? General! General!" The cold wind whistled, and the snow fluttered. Gu Jiao was frozen into a small ice sculpture in the world of ice and snow. She lay there frozen with Sirius's corpse, losing her body temperature and breathing bit by bit. People would think of many things before they died, but Gu Jiao couldn't think of anything. Her head was frozen. She didn't know how much time had passed, but the last trace of her consciousness was also frozen in the snow. She closed her eyes. Gu Chongqing's horse galloped quickly in the night. It was his most beloved mount. When it came to the residence, it was only a little colt. They had been together for several years and had already formed an indescribable tacit understanding. The horse felt its master's anxiety, and its hooves almost broke off in the snow. Gu Chongqing went to the forest where the camp had been stationed and found the bodies of the experts of the previous dynasty buried in the snow. He dug through the snow with his bare hands and turned the bodies over one by one. Not Jiao Jiao. Not Jiao Jiao. Not Jiao Jiao either. Every one of them had been killed by the red tasseled spear. It could be seen that Gu Jiao dealt with them with ease. If that death warrior was here, Gu Jiao wouldn't have succeeded so easily. Gu Chongqing finished digging through the last body. His fingers were stiff, and he knelt in the snow, gasping for breath. If Gu Yan was here, he would be able to sense where Jiao Jiao went. After all, Gu Chongqing was not Gu Yan. He couldn't sense Gu Jiao's movements. He just had an inexplicable intuition that Gu Jiao had left the forest with some kind of mission. She might have predicted that she wouldn't come back so soon, or she might not even be able to come back, so her planned retreat was to let the patients rush to Yuegu City and hand them over to Dr. Song. She took the initiative to find that death warrior. Why did she go to him? Why? The wind and snow were too heavy, and even the horses were unwilling to move forward. The soldier had to dismount from his horse and lead it to try to keep up with the team. However, after just 2 steps, he felt something under his feet and stumbled forward. He fell on a hard light shui pile. The snow pile was a little hard, but he didn't care too much. He pressed on the other side of the snow pile and stood up. But when he pressed on it, he was stunned. What's wrong with the feel of it? A chill ran down his spine, and he carefully looked at his hand. As a result, he saw a round head. He fell back with a cry and tumbled in the snow. As soon as he sat up, he happened to meet a pair of eyes that were still open. He was scared out of his wits. He didn't even care about the horse anymore. He ran forward, scared witless. "Ghost! Ghost! What are you shouting about?" A sergeant grabbed him. "You want to attract the pursuers, don't you?" He didn't dare to look back. He only pointed his trembling finger behind him. "No. No. Brother Zhang. There's a ghost over there." The safety along the way was very important. If there was really a ghost, it might not be a real ghost, but a person lurking in the dark. The sergeant called Brother Zhang walked towards the protruding light shui pile with the wind and snow on his back. When he got closer, he found that it was a person who had been frozen to death. He was worried for nothing. He thought that it was an ambush of an assassin. The sergeant intended to turn around and catch up with the team, but he suddenly felt that the face was a little familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. He bent down again and carefully looked at the other person's face. He finally remembered where he had seen him. Sir. The man with the silver fox was sitting in a carriage pulled by 8 horses. Suddenly, an anxious voice of a soldier came from outside. He looked at the unconscious uncle beside him, took out his slender right hand from the warm hand, opened the curtain and asked, "What's the matter?" The soldier reported, "It seems that someone saw Sky Wolf." After a while, the man with the silver fox and a few of his henchmen appeared beside the light shui pile where the person had been tripped. The henchman removed the snow and revealed Sky Wolf's body. He knelt beside the other body with his head on the ground. His cheek was slightly tilted to the right. He didn't put all his weight on the body, but it was still heavy enough. Everyone was stunned. Sky Wolf was the #1 master under Sir. Didn't he escort Princess Ning An to escape? How could he die here? Who was the person who died with him? The man with the silver fox frowned and looked at Sky Wolf's body in disbelief. The henchman understood why Sir had such a look. Sky Wolf was a man of sacrifice that Sir bought from the nobles of the Yen Kingdom with a lot of money. He was not an ordinary man of sacrifice. The dragon shadow guards of the royal family of the Zhao Kingdom couldn't even withstand 10 moves from Sky Wolf. No one in the Yen Kingdom, the Zhao Kingdom, or the Chen Kingdom could hurt Sky Wolf. The handsome face of the man with the silver fox was covered with a layer of frost. He said to his henchman coldly, "Check who is the other dead one?" "Yes." One of the henchmen squatted down and removed the snow on the man's face. It was a young and tender face. There was a red birthmark on the left side of the face. The man with the silver fox recognized the birthmark immediately. "It's him?" He was surprised. The man with the silver fox had fought with Gu Jiao on the ice layer of the lake. Gu Jiao had hurt him with the red tasseled spear. Before that, Gu Jiao and another man in black broke into the governor's office of Lingguan City at night. They used black gunpowder to open a bloody path and save the old Marquis Ding and of the Zhao Kingdom. "Sir, he's still alive," the henchman said in shock. He had originally planned to separate the serious from the small corpse, but as soon as his hand touched Gu Jiao's face, he felt that something was wrong. He checked the other party's breath. Although the breath was weak, it was still there. "Sir, Prince Yi has woken up. He asked me to ask what happened here." The bodyguard of Prince Yi came over and said. The man with the silver fox looked at the unconscious Gu Jiao thoughtfully. "Sky Wolf is dead. The murderer has just been caught." The man with the silver fox went back to the carriage. An unconscious soldier in armor was also taken into the carriage with him. Prince Yi covered the wound on his shoulder. He frowned in pain and asked, "Who is he?" "The murderer of Sky Wolf." Prince Yi looked at Gu Jiao's figure and her armor, which did not have any special insignia. He said, "What? Him? A small soldier? He's a soldier from the Zhao Kingdom." The man with the silver fox said. Prince Yi had just been defeated. When he mentioned the Zhao Kingdom, his face turned pale. He said in a low voice, "The Gu army?" The man with the silver fox threw Gu Jiao on the carpet of the carriage. He kicked Gu Jiao's leg away lightly. "Look at the armor. It doesn't look like it." The Gu army wore silver armor. This boy's armor was a bit like the armor of the Tang family's archers, but it did not have the insignia of the Tang family's archers. Prince Yi looked at Gu Jiao strangely. "You said he killed Sky Wolf? How is it possible? How old does he look?" The man with the silver fox smiled. "Uncle, do you still remember the boy I mentioned to you who is related to the Yen Kingdom?" Prince Yi frowned. "Is he the one you mentioned?" "Sir, his luggage has been found. It's here." Outside the carriage, the man with the silver fox's confidant handed over a heavy small basket and a red tasseled spear. The man with the silver fox took them in the snow. The moment the curtain was lifted, the wind and snow rushed in. King Yi was so cold that he shivered, and his frown deepened. The man with the silver fox tied the curtain and rummaged through the small basket. The man with the silver fox was a little disappointed when he saw that there was only some dry food and a small tattered medicine box. He thought he would find some treasure. The man with the silver fox placed the small basket beside Gu Jiao and caressed the red tasseled spear in his hand. He said to Prince Yi, "Uncle, this is the weapon of the Yen Kingdom's divine general Shenyuan Li. It's so ugly?" Prince Yi's eyes hurt from the big red flower and small braids on the red tasseled spear. The man with the silver fox smiled faintly and did not care about the ugly weapon. "I asked around in the Chen Kingdom a few days ago. Shenyuan Li's red tasseled spear was given to the king of the Chan Kingdom as a birthday gift by the king of the Yen Kingdom. After the war between the Chan Kingdom and the Zhao Kingdom, the red tasseled spear was snatched away by Marquis Xianping of the Zhao Kingdom. During the peace talks between the two kingdoms, the Chen kingdom wanted it back but was rejected by Marquis Xianping. Prince Yi pondered for a moment and agreed, yes, that person would do such a thing. He was a shameless person. Prince Yi paused and asked again, is he from the Shenyuan family or the Marquis Xuanping's residence? The man with the silver fox shook his head, I'm not sure at the moment. Not only did he get the spear, he also has the black gunpowder. He must be related to the Yan kingdom. So he's from the Shenyuan family. Prince Yi made a judgment in his heart. His expression changed immediately. We caught someone from the Shenyuan family. If the Shenyuan family knew, they would trample us into meat paste with 100,000 cavalry. The man with the silver fox smiled. Uncle, don't worry. If he was really an important person in the Shenyuan family, the Yan kingdom would have sent reinforcements. Prince Yi thought it made sense. Thinking of something, Prince Yi asked again, then, why didn't you kill him? He killed Tian Lang. Aren't you going to avenge him? The man with the silver fox caressed the red tasseled spear in his hand and said, Tian Lang is dead. Even if I avenge him, he won't come back to life. But he killed Tian Lang, which means he's more powerful than Tian Lang. Uncle, if he's willing to submit to us, wouldn't we have a second Tian Lang? Prince Yi hesitated and asked, what if he doesn't submit? The man with the silver fox curled his lips. He's a soldier of the Zhao kingdom. He saved the old Marquis Ding An's life. If we use him to threaten the Gu family army, what do you think the Gu family army will do? Prince Yi looked at the young man lying on the ground without blinking. He didn't know why, but his heart was in a mess. I think it's better if we kill him. The man with the silver fox smiled. Uncle, don't be afraid. He's frozen like this. He won't be a threat. Digression. The last day of the month, the tickets were cleared. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1092923778. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 516. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. After King Yi's defeat, everyone thought that he and his son-in-law would lead a 5,000-man army to Beiyang City or Yi City to seek refuge with the Chen Kingdom's army. However, the scouts hiding outside Beiyang City and Yi City reported that they didn't find any traces of the former dynasty's army. On the other side, Gu Chongqing was also desperately searching for Gu Jiao's whereabouts. However, no one expected that King Yi and his party would brave the wind and snow, pass through the ice field, and arrive at a paradise. It was called a paradise because there was a continuous mountain range and a natural hot spring at the top of the mountain in a world of ice and snow. This was a treasure trove that the Silver Fox Man found by chance during a winter hunt. It was located in Zhao country's territory, but it was an unclaimed land. Every year, it would be frozen for several months, so the border officials treated it as an ordinary mountain range. The Silver Fox Man secretly built a mountain stronghold here. Even King Yi was here for the first time. When the carriage entered the stronghold, it had to cross a wooden bridge. As the carriage walked on the wooden bridge, King Yi asked the Silver Fox Man anxiously, "Is it really safe here?" The Silver Fox Man brushed away the snowflakes that accidentally flew in from the window and landed on his silver fox cloak. He smiled calmly and confidently. "Uncle, don't worry. The mountains here are steep and the terrain is hidden. When we came here just now, it snowed heavily. Our tracks have long been covered. It's impossible for the Gu army to find us. Under the wooden bridge was a bottomless abyss. King Yi unconsciously lifted the curtain and took a look. His soul almost flew out of his body. If this wooden bridge broke, they would all be smashed to pieces. It was not until everyone had crossed the wooden bridge that King Yi's heart finally relaxed. However, in the next second, he heard his nephew say, "Feng Shi, cut down the wooden bridge." King Yi was shocked. "Zheng, why are you cutting down the wooden bridge? Are you going to be trapped here forever?" The man with the silver fox comforted him with a smile and said to King Yi, "Uncle, the young master of the Gu family army, Gu Chongqing, is unusually cunning. I'm worried that he will still find some clues and chase after us." Prince Yi frowned and said, "But didn't you say that you wouldn't leave any traces?" "This is a precautionary measure," the man with the silver fox explained with a smile. "As for the way down the mountain, Uncle, you don't have to worry about it. There's a secret passage in the stockade that leads to the outside from the top of the mountain. Even I haven't taken it before. That's our real escape route." Hearing this, King Yi heaved a sigh of relief again. However, the moment the wooden bridge was cut down, he was still worried for no reason. He could not tell whether this worry came from the wooden bridge itself or from something else. His gaze unconsciously fell on the soldier from the Zhao kingdom. There was a charcoal brazier in the carriage, so it was much warmer than outside. The ice on the soldier's armor had melted, and there was a puddle of water under his body. The mask on his helmet seemed to have been lifted during the fight. He was originally wearing a mask, but it was pulled off by the silver fox man's subordinates. He was lying on his side, and the left side of his face with a birthmark was exposed. The more King Yi looked at him, the tighter his frown became. "Uncle, we're here," the man with the silver fox said to King Yi. Then, he noticed that King Yi was staring at the young man in a strange way, so he asked, "Uncle, what's wrong?" "I feel that we should kill him." King Yi looked at Gu Jiao and said. The man with the silver fox smiled and said, "If he's useless, it's not too late to kill him." "Your Highness, it's time to get off the carriage." Outside the carriage, a soldier reported. King Yi withdrew his gaze from Gu Jiao and got off the carriage. After the man with the silver fox got off the carriage, he said to his trusted subordinate, "Feng Shi." Feng Shi cupped his hands and said, "Sir." The man with the silver fox ordered lightly, "Take him down and find a room to settle him down. Also, find a doctor to check on him. Don't let him die." Feng Shi said, "Yes." The man with the silver fox paused and reminded, "Also, he has some skills. Be careful not to be ambushed." Feng Shi cupped his hands and replied respectfully, "I know what to do." There were 2 hot springs at the top of the mountain. King Yi's courtyard was located at the large hot spring, while the man with the silver fox's courtyard was located at the small hot spring. The man with the silver fox sent King Yi back to his courtyard and settled him down before returning to his own courtyard. The courtyard was heavily guarded both inside and outside. The man with the silver fox looked at the 2 soldiers at the door and asked, "Is the princess inside?" One of them replied, "Sir, the princess has always been inside." The man with the silver fox asked again, "Has she never gone out?" The soldier shook his head. "No." This was a stronghold that could accommodate 10,000 soldiers. It was quite spacious and no one restricted Princess Ning'an's freedom, but she just did not want to go out. The man with the silver fox nodded thoughtfully. "Understood. Guard the courtyard well and report to me if there are any movements." "Yes." Everyone replied in unison. The man with the silver fox entered the courtyard. On the other hand, Feng Shi had settled Gu Jiao in a small wooden house. Gu Jiao's small basket was also carried over by a soldier. "Deputy General Feng, how should we deal with this basket?" the soldier asked. Feng Shi dug out this basket personally from the snow and sent it to Sir together with the red tasseled spear. Sir only took the red tasseled spear, which showed that he did not care about the things in the basket. Feng Shi looked around. Other than some hard dry rations, there was only a small tattered box. There was a faint smell of medicinal herbs on the box. It should be a medicine box. Take it away, Feng Shui said. He paused and said, Forget it. Give me that box. What if there were some valuable medicinal herbs in it? Yes. The soldier passed the medicine box to Feng Shui and left with a small basket. Feng Shui sent another person to invite the accompanying medical officer. While waiting for the medical officer, Feng Shui tried to open the medicine box, but it would not budge no matter how hard he tried. He touched the lid and said strangely, It's not locked. He pulled out his dagger and inserted it into the gap under the lid, trying to pry it open. With a clang sound, his dagger was broken, but the lid of the box was still intact. What kind of broken box is this? Feng Shui stood up and impatiently kicked the medicine box. He looked at the broken dagger in his hand and said painfully, The dagger that Sir gave me. I haven't used it twice. As he muttered, the medical officer was brought over by the soldier. Feng Shui pulled out the broken dagger from the gap in the box and cursed as he walked out. He wanted to see if the dagger could be fixed. He walked 2 steps and turned back. He threw the broken dagger into the brazier. As for Gu Jiao, who was on the bed, Feng Shui had never seen anyone who could be saved after being frozen to this extent. However, since the Lord had given the order, Feng Shui still found a rope to tie up Gu Jiao's hands and feet. The medical officer entered the room and bowed to Feng Shui. Feng Shui said coldly, The doctor ordered that no matter what, we have to keep him alive. Use whatever good medicine you have on him. Yes, I understand. The medical officer replied. Feng Shui went out to fix the dagger. The medical officer came to the bedside and put his medicine box on the small table at the head of the bed. Because he was a soldier, there was no need to avoid the taboo between men and women. The medical officer directly sat down at the bedside. Gu Jiao's hands were tied together and placed on his stomach. The medical officer did not dare to untie Gu Jiao's ropes. He just took Gu Jiao's pulse like this. He did not know until he checked, but he was shocked. Yes. Yes. It was a girl. The medical officer's whole body trembled. He subconsciously stood up, but his hand was suddenly grabbed by a cold hand without any temperature. The medical officer opened his mouth wide. Come. Before he could finish his sentence, a blade appeared on his wrist without him noticing. The medical officer was stunned by this series of actions. What was going on? Didn't they say that he was about to freeze to death? Why did he suddenly wake up? It was fine if he woke up, but he did not know where the knife came from to cut his wrist. Gu Jiao woke up when Feng Shui tied her up with a rope. Gu Jiao did not know who the other party was, but since the other party tied her up with a rope, they probably did not plan to treat her well. After Feng Shui left, she quietly took out the blade hidden in her arm armor. Speaking of which, this armor was very well made. It could hide hidden weapons everywhere. It was as if it was tailor-made for her. Gu Jiao's eyes were as cold as her hands. The medical officer's legs began to tremble. Gu Jiao gave him a look to the soldier outside the door. The medical officer understood. He wiped away his cold sweat and swallowed his saliva. He said in a normal tone, "Little brother, can you help me get a bucket of hot water?" The soldier wanted to say, "Why don't you go yourself?" In the end, he was still a medical officer. The soldier could not afford to offend him, so he held back his impatience and went. As soon as the soldier left, Gu Jiao cut the rope. "Don't make a sound. Otherwise, I'll cut your throat." The medical officer had been successfully threatened. Gu Jiao tied him up with a rope and then took a ball of cotton from the pillow and stuffed it into his mouth. Then Gu Jiao saw the small medicine box that was thrown into the brazier. Her eyes turned cold as she took the small medicine box out. Fortunately, it was not burned. Gu Jiao walked over to close the door. The soldier had to get a bucket of water. He would not be back so quickly, but he would not be too slow either. There was not much time left for her. Her situation was not good. It should be because she had been frozen in the snow for too long that there were some complications. She was a bit breathless. She opened the small medicine box and took out a blood pressure monitor to measure her blood pressure. Her blood pressure was too high. Cough. Her throat suddenly itched and she coughed out a mouthful of pink foam. The medical officer sitting on the bed was shocked when he saw this scene. It was one thing for her to take out those strange things from the box, but she actually coughed out this kind of thing. This was lung disease. The kind that no medicine could cure. Gu Jiao measured her blood pressure again. This time, her blood pressure began to drop sharply. It was acute pulmonary edema. It would not be long before she would go into cardiac shock. In such a place, once she went into cardiac shock, she would never wake up again. Gu Jiao took out a handkerchief to cover her mouth and coughed out another mouthful of pink foam. She had already begun to show symptoms similar to heart failure and was about to go into cardiac shock. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. She held the handkerchief in one hand and took out an epinephrine syringe with the other. There was no time to give her an intravenous route. Gu Jiao grabbed the syringe and used the hand holding the handkerchief to pry open the armor. She aimed at her thigh and stabbed it down. "Doctor, your hot water is here." The soldier came to the door. Why is the door closed?" The soldier pushed the door open and entered. He said to the medical officer sitting on the stool, "Doctor, your hot water." "Bring it in," the medical officer said in a low voice. The soldier curled his lips. It was one thing to ask him to fetch water, but to ask him to bring it in? Did he have no hands or feet? This soldier was related to the steward of King Yi. He had always been more arrogant than ordinary soldiers. The medical officer was not willing to order him around unless it was necessary. The soldier put the water on the ground beside the medical officer. He did not forget to look at the sleeping soldier of the Zhao kingdom on the bed and asked, "Why hasn't he woken up yet?" The medical officer said seriously, "He has been frozen for so long. How can he wake up so easily? You have to treat him." "Then you treat him." The soldier seemed to be staring at the medical officer as he treated Gu Jiao. The medical officer desperately winked at him. The soldier asked, "What are you doing? Are your eyes cramping? Didn't His Excellency ask you to treat him? Hurry up and treat him." The medical officer gritted his teeth. Yes. Go away." If the soldier did not leave, he would like to see how he would save the living dead. This person was dug out of the snow and had been frozen together with Sirius's body. He did not believe that he could survive. "Why don't you treat him? Is it not possible? Then I will tell Deputy General Feng and ask him to send another doctor." As soon as the soldier finished speaking, a silver needle flew close to the medical officer's ear and hit the soldier between his eyebrows. The soldier's eyes opened wide and he fell back. Just as he was about to hit the floor and make a huge noise, Gu Jiao blocked him with her foot and then gently put him on the ground. The medical officer sighed silently in his heart. "I have already warned you, but you did not listen." Gu Jiao lifted the quilt and got up from the bed. Gu Jiao did not threaten the medical officer with a knife this time because she did not need it. When he saw Gu Jiao, not only did she not kill him but also brought him back to life, the medical officer looked at Gu Jiao as if she was a ghost. "Where are my other things?" Gu Jiao asked the medical officer. The medical officer shook his head like a rattledrum. "I do not know, but probably it was taken by Deputy General Feng. He was the one who sent her here." Gu Jiao pulled out the silver needle and put it away. "No one will come here for the time being, right?" Gu Jiao asked. The medical officer waved his hand. No, this is very remote and is where the servants live. There are a lot of soldiers outside. Even if you recover, you will not be able to escape." The medical officer. "Why should I remind her?" Gu Jiao opened the medicine box again. Acute pulmonary edema not only required a cardiac stimulant to prevent cardiac shock, but also to expel the edema from the lungs as soon as possible. Gu Jiao found a bottle of mannitol and gave herself an infusion while asking the medical officer for some information. It turned out that King Yi was really defeated in the Battle of Lingguan City. King Yi abandoned the city and fled with the prince consort and 5,000 soldiers. They met her on the way and it was the prince consort who picked her up. That was true. The path that Princess Ning'an took was arranged by the prince consort for her. Of course, the prince consort would be able to find it. As for the prince consort's purpose, it was not difficult to guess. It was not because the prince consort was sympathetic, but because she probably still had some value to him. Gu Jiao said thoughtfully, "So this is King Yi's nest?" Medical officer, don't ask me, okay? I have said enough. If I say more, my conscience will not let it go. Yes. The medical officer said, "It is the nest." Digression. A new month has begun. As usual, I am looking for a wave of guaranteed monthly votes. Moi, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that cannot be found online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1092684884. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 517. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. After Feng Shu's dagger was broken, he took the broken part of the dagger directly to the armory. He found a soldier who forged weapons and had them repair his dagger. These soldiers were all blacksmiths. They came to the military camp to do nothing but forge. At this time, they were repairing the soldiers' broken armor and weapons. They were a bit busy. Although Feng Shu was the prince consort's man, repairing armor and weapons was an urgent order from King Yi. Finally, a soldier finished repairing the armor in his hand. Feng Shu hurriedly handed his dagger to him. The soldier took it and looked, saying, "The blade is broken." Feng Shu asked, "It can't be repaired?" The soldier said truthfully, "It's very difficult. Usually, we repair the blade with a curved edge or a gap. Deputy General, your dagger is broken like this. It's very difficult to reconnect it. There will also be marks." The main reason was that their forging skills were not good enough. It was said that in the country of Liang, they could make broken blades flawlessly reconnect. "Then, is there no other way?" Feng Shu asked. "Melt it down and redo it." The soldier said. "Redo it? Is it still the dagger that Darren gave me?" Feng Shu felt stifled, but there was no other way. In order to pry open a small broken box, he actually broke the dagger that Darren gave him. Thinking about it made him angry. In the end, Feng Shu didn't choose to melt the blade. He took the broken dagger and walked back. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Unknowingly, he arrived at the place where Gu Jiao was imprisoned. That was the yard where the residence's miscellaneous items were stored. As the medical officer said, no one came here. However, there was a large group of soldiers training 50 steps away from the main entrance of the yard. Strictly speaking, the defense of the yard was very tight. Feng Shu was angry and couldn't help but want to vent his anger on that soldier from the Zhao kingdom. He arrived in front of Gu Jiao's room and found that the soldier guarding the door was gone. He frowned. He remembered that the door was open when he left, and now it was closed. His face darkened at the sight of so many strange things. He pushed the door open and entered the room without hesitation. He glanced inside warily. He saw the medical officer standing in front of the bed and bending over to bandage the wound on the soldier's wrist. The medical officer heard the movement behind him and also felt the cold wind from outside the door. He turned back and said to Feng Shu, "Deputy General Feng, please close the door. The patient is already frozen. He can't be exposed to the wind anymore. He won't get better. Can he really recover?" Although Feng Shu asked the medical officer to keep the boy alive, he didn't care. After all, he had been in the frontier fortress all year round and had seen too many people with frostbite. Being frozen to this extent, the boy wouldn't be able to live for more than a few days. The medical officer cleared his throat and unhappily said, "Are you questioning my medical skills?" Feng Shui was speechless for a moment. Although he was indeed questioning her, it would be embarrassing to say it out loud. He coughed lightly, looked at the youth's wrist, and said, "Why did you untie him?" The medical officer said seriously, "He is injured." "Didn't you ask me to keep him alive? Without the rope, how can I bandage his wound? If I don't bandage his wound, what will happen if he gets infected? He is so frozen that he only has one last breath left. He is lucky that he didn't die. If I delay any longer, even if the gods come, they won't be able to save him." Since the medical officer said that the boy only had one last breath left, Feng Shui didn't care about the matter of his hands being tied up. "How long will it take for him to wake up?" Feng Shui asked. "That's hard to say," the medical officer said and looked at the door. "If you let him continue to be exposed to the wind, he probably won't wake up for 10 days to half a month." Feng Shui quickly went into the room and closed the door. Then he felt that something was wrong with him. Why did he come in? He didn't want to look at this boy. "Where are the people outside?" Feng Shui asked. The medical officer pretended to turn around. While bandaging Gu Jiao's non-existent wound, his eyes drifted. "How would I know? I've been treating him inside." "This boy, where did he go?" Feng Shui impatiently walked out of the room. "Door." The medical officer's voice came from inside the room. Feng Shui frowned and closed the door behind him. After making sure that Feng Shui was far away, the medical officer's legs gave way and he sat on the edge of the bed. He raised his hand to wipe away the cold sweat on his forehead, panting heavily. "You scared me to death, scared me to death. Luckily, I didn't let the cat out of the bag. You don't know Prince Yi's methods. If he finds out that I helped you—" Halfway through his sentence, the doctor felt that something was amiss. He took a closer look and saw that Gu Jiao had already fallen asleep in such a short period of time. "Medical officer." The medical officer waved his hand in front of Gu Jiao's eyes. Hey, girl? Girl. Little boy." Gu Jiao didn't respond. Good. "I will expose you now." The medical officer turned to leave, but just as he reached the door, a small ghostly voice came from behind him. "Bury the body." The medical officer staggered and fell forward. His forehead hit the door, and a big bruise immediately appeared on his forehead. He didn't dare to turn around and only turned his head slightly. "Remember to bring 2 steamed buns when you come back." "I am hungry," Gu Jiao said lightly with her eyes closed. "I am Prince Yi's man. You will make me look unjust," the medical officer said sternly. Gu Jiao turned over and faced the inside of the bed. "I will let you touch the medicine box." "Medical officer, deal." Gu Jiao slept from noon to night. The acute pulmonary edema caused by frostbite had slightly improved, but it would take a long time for her to fully recover. She had to stay on the mountain for a few days. Moreover, Gu Jiao paused and took 2 chloramphenicol tablets from the medicine box. Then she poured herself a glass of water. Halfway through, the medical officer came over. Seeing that she was awake and drinking water at the table, the medical officer couldn't help but look her up and down. To be honest, her face was still a little pale. It was obvious that she had been freezing, but she was much better than when she was sent here in the morning. At least she wasn't as pale as a corpse. "Here, the steamed buns you asked for." The medical officer put the food box on the table and took out a bowl of steamed buns and a bowl of red date ginger soup. "It is to ward off the cold. Drink it." If it was really a boy, a bowl of ginger soup would be enough. Considering that she was a girl, the medical officer cut a few pieces of red dates and added a spoonful of brown sugar. "And this?" The medical officer took a small basket from behind him. "Is this yours?" "Yes." Gu Jiao nodded. "I couldn't find the things inside. I only found this basket," the medical officer said regretfully. Gu Jiao took the small basket. This was the basket that Gu Shaoshun made for her. It was very durable and had accompanied her from the capital to here. It had never broken. Gu Jiao put down the small basket and ate the steamed buns with the ginger soup. After drinking the warm ginger soup, Gu Jiao sweated all over and felt much better. After she finished eating, she took out 2 pills from the small medicine box and handed them to him. "Eat it." "What is this?" The medical officer looked at the pills in his hand strangely and asked. "Medicine," Gu Jiao said. "Why do I need to take medicine?" the medical officer asked. Gu Jiao said indifferently, "Just eat it when I tell you to. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" The medical officer refused in his heart. He didn't know what kind of medicine it was. What if it was poison? He looked at the medicine in his hand and then at the small medicine box on the table. "Can I touch it more after eating it?" Gu Jiao: "No." Medical officer: For the next 2 days, Gu Jiao quietly stayed in the small room to recuperate. That soldier was nowhere to be found. Deputy General Feng couldn't find him, so he sent a new person over. It wasn't a small matter for a soldier to go missing in the military camp. However, something even bigger had happened in the military camp in the past few days, so they had no time to look for a missing soldier. King Yi fell ill. On the second night after staying in the stronghold, King Yi suddenly had a cold and high fever. During the Battle of Lingguan City, King Yi had been shot and injured. The medical officers initially thought that his wound had become infected, leading to this series of events. However, when the medical officers checked King Yi's wound, they found that it had healed well and there were no signs of swelling or infection. The medical officers then guessed that King Yi had caught a cold, so they brewed a soup for him to treat the cold. Unexpectedly, after drinking the soup, not only did King Yi not show any signs of improvement, he even coughed up bloody sputum on the morning of the 3rd day. The medical officials examined Prince Yi once again. This time, they finally sensed that something was amiss. Generally speaking, coughing up bloody sputum like this was due to lung disease. However, there were many types of lung disease. There were lung diseases caused by colds, and also lung diseases caused by plagues. No, it can't be plagues, right? Could it be tuberculosis? A young medical officer asked in fear. Tuberculosis was also a type of lung disease. It was highly contagious in the early stages, but as long as the right medicine was taken, most of the time it would become chronic. To put it bluntly, it would not cause immediate death. Plagues were more contagious than tuberculosis. The fatality rate was higher, and the death rate was also faster. If they had to choose between the two, they would of course rather that King Yi had tuberculosis. But King Yi's symptoms don't seem to be tuberculosis, an older medical officer said. This sentence made all the medical officers fall into silence. On the other side, in the Silver Fox Man's study, Feng Shi was reporting King Yi's condition to him. The doctor said that King Yi has been infected with lung disease, but they don't dare to say what kind of lung disease it is for the time being, Feng Shi said truthfully. Lung disease. It can't be. The Silver Fox Man shook his head. No, it can't be. Uncle has never been in contact with patients with plagues. Cough, cough. As he spoke, he suddenly started coughing violently. Sir, are you all right? Feng Shi took a step forward and poured a cup of hot tea for the Silver Fox Man. He handed it to the Silver Fox Man with both hands. The Silver Fox Man took the hot tea and took a few sips. Not only did it not stop, but it also became more violent. Cough, cough. Cough, cough. He put the teacup on the table and frowned. Pour some cold tea. Yes. Feng Shi poured a cup of cold tea for him. The Silver Fox Man took a sip and seemed to have stopped coughing. But after a while, he started coughing violently again. Sir. Feng Shi looked at him worriedly. The Silver Fox Man waved his hand and said indifferently, It's nothing. It's just a cold. The Silver Fox Man was a peerless expert. A small illness like a cold was not a problem for him. He rarely took it to heart. I'll be fine after a few days. Send someone to keep a close eye on my uncle. Don't let anything happen to him. King Yi was the most legitimate member of the royal family of the previous dynasty. He was the last direct descendant of the world patriarch. Nothing could happen to him. Feng Shui said earnestly, "Sir, you have to take care of yourself too. If something really happens to King Yi, you'll be the only descendant of the royal family. It's not like I don't have a son." Halfway through his sentence, the Silver Fox Man paused. "I know. You may leave." After Feng Shui left, the Silver Fox Man sat alone in the study room for a long time. He only left the study room when it was late at night and it was time for him to rest. He came to the door of a room. The maid who was guarding outside the door bowed to him. "Prince Consort, has the princess gone to bed?" the Silver Fox Man asked. "Yes, she has," the maid replied. The Silver Fox Man was about to enter the room, but he could not help but cough. He turned around and covered his mouth with his fist. Cough, cough. "Prince Consort, are you feeling unwell?" the maid asked. The Silver Fox Man put down his fist and said indifferently, "I'm fine." "Forget it. The princess has gone to bed. I won't disturb her." The next morning, King Yi was finally diagnosed with an epidemic disease by the medical officers. When the Silver Fox Man heard the news, he was looking at the military deployment map of the stronghold in the study room. He put down the map in his hand and looked at Feng Shui with a frown. "What did you say? What happened to my uncle?" "His Highness King Yi. His Highness King Yi has contracted an epidemic disease." "Impossible." "That's what the medical officers said. The medical officers even asked me to ask you, sir, if there's a need to isolate His Highness King Yi." "But uncle." The Silver Fox Man stood up agitatedly. Immediately, he felt an itch in his throat. He covered his mouth with a handkerchief and coughed violently. After coughing, he removed the handkerchief and saw blood on it. "Sir." Feng Shui saw it too. His expression changed abruptly. He strode towards the Silver Fox Man. "Don't come over." The Silver Fox Man raised his hand to block him. His eyes flickered and his expression was complicated. "Go out first. No one is allowed to enter this study room." Feng Shui said, "But," the Silver Fox Man said, "Get out." Feng Shui clenched his fist. "Yes." Feng Shui gritted his teeth and walked out of the study room. However, the moment he walked out, he suddenly bent over and coughed out a mouthful of blood. "Digression. King Yi, kill her. Prince Consort, uncle, don't be afraid. Can she kill 5,000 of us by herself?" Little epidemic. Hello. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964282623112. HTML Genius memorized the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 518. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The man with the silver fox decided to suppress the news that King Yi was infected with the plague. After all, they had just suffered a defeat and their morale was already low. If news of King Yi's illness were to spread now, the morale of the soldiers would be shaken. Worse still, the situation would become even more difficult to control. The man with the silver fox called the medical officers who were treating King Yi to a small wooden house nearby. He sat behind a screen, at least 10 steps away from the medical officers. The medical officers thought that he was worried that they had just come into contact with King Yi and was afraid that he would be infected. Behind the screen, the man with the silver fox sat on a cushioned chair and asked in a normal tone, "How is my uncle's condition?" I want to hear it from you personally. Is my uncle really infected with the plague and can he be cured? The medical officers looked at each other, not knowing how to answer the man with the silver fox. The first two questions were not difficult to answer, but the last one was the hardest. In the end, the most experienced medical officer Chen boldly answered, "Sir, after our careful diagnosis, His Highness King Yi is indeed infected with the plague. As for whether he can be cured, we dare not jump to conclusions." The man with the silver fox's expression became very ugly. "All of you have come into contact with my uncle?" the man with the silver fox asked in a low voice. The medical officer's expressions all became complicated. They did not know that King Yi was infected with the plague at first, so they did not take enough precautions and directly took King Yi's pulse. Now they were afraid that... Yes. It was still Medical Officer Chen who answered the man with the silver fox. The man with the silver fox's expression became even darker. He clenched his fists subtly and asked, "Have all the medical officers treated my uncle? If so, there would be no medical officers in the military camp who would not be quarantined. This would be very disadvantageous to their current situation. What if someone who was not infected with the plague was infected? Who should they go to for treatment?" Dr. Chen said. "A doctor was taken away by Deputy General Feng. He said that it was your order to treat a hostage. He has been taking care of the hostage for the past 2 days and did not go to His Highness Prince Yi." The man with the silver fox recalled that there was indeed such a thing. When he thought of the soldier from the Zhao country, his expression became unpredictable. The plague was not a cold that could be contracted by being exposed to the cold wind. It needed to be contagious. The man with the silver fox was very sure that he and Prince Yi had never come into contact with those plague patients. The only suspicious person they had come into contact with in the past 2 days was the young man from Zhao country. Could it be him? The man with the silver fox furrowed his brows and muttered. The man with the silver fox thought of the group of plague patients who had escaped, as well as the men of sacrifice and their pursuers who never returned. If that young man was the one who let them go, then everything could be explained. He had killed the group of death warriors and pursuers, and he had also been infected with the plague. Then, he had picked him up from the gravely ill. Thinking of this, the silver fox man clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. No, he still didn't believe it. He wanted to see it for himself. The man with the silver fox was so agitated that he started coughing uncontrollably. The medical officers' expressions changed and they said in unison, "Sir?" The man with the silver fox man covered his mouth with his handkerchief and pretended that he did not see the bloodstains on the handkerchief. He said calmly, "I'm fine. I just caught a cold. Do you understand?" Everyone exchanged fearful glances and lowered their heads in resignation. They answered in unison, "Yes, we understand." The man with the silver fox wiped the bloodstains on the corner of his mouth and said coldly, "I don't care what method you use. You must cure the plague. Otherwise, you and your families will die." The medical officers shuddered in unison. Gu Jiao was sure that she was infected after she heard that Prince Yi was diagnosed with the plague. "Is the news reliable?" Gu Jiao sat at the head of the bed and asked the medical officer who was looking at her small medicine box with greedy eyes, "Is the news reliable?" She already knew that his surname was Tong. He was from Yi City and practiced medicine for a living. Because there was a war, he was forced to join the army by the remnants of the previous dynasty. "Of course it's reliable. When I went back to get the medicine, I saw that they all covered their faces. After asking, I knew that Prince Yi was infected with the plague. Tell me, how did Prince Yi get the plague?" Dr. Tong couldn't understand. Gu Jiao understood. If Prince Yi was infected with the plague, then it could only be because of her. She was not sure whether she was infected by Squire Zhao's blood. But just in case, she still wore a mask under her helmet. When she woke up in this room, the mask on her face was long gone. It was obvious who had taken it off. Dr. Tong told her that she came back in the carriage of Prince Yi and the prince consort. Then it was very likely that they were infected in the carriage. Gu Jiao had never thought of using the plague as a means to attack the enemy. Therefore, Even when she went to kill Sirius, she was well prepared. But she couldn't stop someone from being greedy and wanting to take advantage of her. Dr. Tong was puzzled. He never thought of Gu Jiao. After all, Gu Jiao had been here for 3 days. She didn't look like she was infected with the plague. Her coughing blood was more likely caused by frostbite. And she was getting better quickly every day. If it was the plague, it would only get worse, not better. Moreover, he had been treating her for the past few days. He wasn't infected. You should take your medicine, Gu Jiao said. Dr. Tong was happiest when he took his medicine every day. Because Gu Jiao allowed him to personally open the small medicine box and take out the small pills. That feeling was simply too good. Dr. Tong washed his hands and opened the small medicine box very sincerely. He didn't recognize any of the medicine inside, but he didn't know what it was. He knew which medicine he should take. He recognized the box. He skillfully pressed out 2 pills and swallowed them with warm water. Both pulmonary edema caused by frostbite and this plague would cause pink bubbles to appear. Because of this, Gu Jiao had never been sure that she was infected. Dr. Tong also thought that it was a lung disease caused by frostbite. Gu Jiao also showed symptoms of high fever, but it quickly subsided under the effects of the medicine. Dr. Tong, on the other hand, didn't show any symptoms. She wasn't sure if the chloramphenicol had a preventive effect, or if Dr. Tong was an asymptomatic infected person. An asymptomatic infected person of the plague wasn't infectious. In other words, if Dr. Tong was the latter, then he was the safest person in the entire stronghold. He could come into contact with anyone. He didn't have to worry about being infected or infecting others. Dr. Tong didn't know anything about himself. He finished his medicine and had to put the medicine box back. He smacked his lips reluctantly, closed the small medicine box, and began to look forward to the next time he took his medicine. Once the plague flared up, without proper treatment, the body would collapse rapidly. In the afternoon, King Yi was still able to talk, but at night, his fever was so high that his consciousness was blurry. The man with the silver fox originally planned to go to Gu Jiao's room to investigate, but he was called away by King Yi's subordinates halfway. King Yi was in a daze from the fever. He called the man with the silver fox's name, so everyone had to call him over. Zheng Zheng King Yi called out to him in a daze. The man with the silver fox covered his face with a mask. He came to the bed and held King Yi's hand. Uncle, I'm here. Zheng King Yi held the man's hand tightly. Zheng I'm so scared. The man with the silver fox looked at King Yi, who was tortured by the disease, and his heart was filled with grief. Uncle, don't be scared. I'll definitely cure you, King Yi said in a daze. It's him. Zheng it's him. King Yi was cruel and heartless. The method of punishing Gu Chongqing and the Gu family army was suggested by one of his subordinates, but he treated his nephew well. Even though such a big thing had happened, he didn't want to blame his nephew for not listening to him. King Yi said in a trembling voice, Kill him, Zheng, kill him. A huge wave of regret and pain emerged in the man with the silver fox's heart. All right, Uncle, wait for me. I'll go and kill him now. On the other side, Gu Jiao asked Physician Tong to find out who in the stockade had symptoms similar to the plague. Physician Tong said, King Yi has been diagnosed. The prince consort. I heard that he also coughed a few times. There's also Feng Shi. Who's Feng Shi? Gu Jiao asked. Physician Tong said, Deputy General Feng, someone saw the person who dug you out from under Tian Lang's corpse coughing up blood. A few of his brothers are also said to be in a bad condition. Physician Tong's words were more reserved and serious, but Gu Jiao was almost certain that the prince consort and Feng Shi were also infected. The method they used to deal with the Gu family army was ultimately used on them. The tragedy that should have happened to the Gu family army was now the tragedy of the Qian dynasty's army. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896424109241909. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 519. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao didn't have so much medicine to save an entire village. If she did, she wouldn't have chosen to stop the plague at its source. Moreover, they were all trusted aides hand-picked by Prince Yi and the prince consort. They wouldn't surrender even if she saved them. Gu Jiao finished her 4-drip. She pulled out the needle and packed up the medical supplies. Dr. Tong said, "It's time for dinner. I'll go to the kitchen to see if dinner is ready." He walked out as he spoke. However, he soon turned around and rushed into the room with a frightened expression. He slammed the door shut and pressed his back against it. "Oh no! The prince consort is here. He's here to kill you." "Kill me?" Gu Jiao asked. Dr. Tong said anxiously, "I saw a sword in his hand. If he's not here to kill you, is he here to cut down trees? Was Prince Yi dying and finally decided to kill her to vent his anger?" Gu Jiao stared coldly and said to Dr. Tong, "Move aside." Dr. Tong said, Of course I have to move aside. I won't block the sword for you." But his legs were so weak that he couldn't move. Gu Jiao stood up and walked towards Dr. Tong. She reached out and pulled Dr. Tong back. At the same time, the man with the silver fox also reached out and pushed the door open. Just as the two were about to clash, a soldier suddenly reported anxiously from outside the room, "Sir." "Oh no. The princess is injured." Gu Jiao heard the sound of hurried footsteps outside the door. Dr. Tong stuttered and asked, "WWW, have they left?" Gu Jiao nodded and put down the hand that was about to pull him away. "They're gone." Dr. Tong's legs went weak and he fell to the ground. "Someone's here," Gu Jiao suddenly said. Dr. Tong scrambled to her feet and hid behind Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao vigilantly looked at the tightly shut door and secretly tightened her grip on the silver needle at her fingertips. Dong dong dong. The person outside the room gently knocked on the door. Following which, a low female voice slowly rang out, "I am the princess's maid, Lian Er. The princess asked me to come here." Gu Jiao looked at Dr. Tong. Dr. Tong nodded silently. There was indeed a maid by Princess Ning An's side called Lian Er, and the voice was indeed the same. Gu Jiao walked back to the table, took out a mask from the small medicine box, and put it on. She also put on the helmet, put down the iron mask, and opened the door for Lian Er. "Don't come in," Gu Jiao said. Lian Er's foot stopped halfway. She didn't know if it was because of this sentence or because of the voice that said it. Lian Er looked at the young man in front of her in disbelief. The young man looked at Dr. Tong behind him. "Go outside and keep watch. Call us if anyone comes." Dr. Tong left. Lian Er looked at the handsome young man in armor in front of her and opened her mouth. "You are..." The prince consort was lured away by the princess? Gu Jiao asked straightforwardly. Now Lian Er was sure that this young man was actually a girl. Lian Er was so shocked that she almost couldn't speak. Wasn't he a soldier of the Zhao kingdom? How did he become a girl? It was the princess who lured him away. Lian Er recovered after a while and replied to Gu Jiao. The princess heard that they caught a soldier of the Zhao kingdom, but the prince consort's people kept a close eye on him, so the princess didn't have a chance to see you. Tonight, The princess saw the prince consort go out with a sword and guessed that he might have come to kill you. She didn't care much and told me to quickly come and take you out. Right, are you from the Gu army? Or, are you a border guard? Neither. Gu Jiao said. I'm from the capital. Gu Jiao took out the token under her armor. Do you recognize it? Gu Jiao asked. Lien reached out to take it. Gu Jiao said, don't come close. Oh. Lien retreated and looked at it carefully for a while. Her eyes lit up. It's the token of Rancho Palace. The princess also has one in her hands. Were you sent by the Empress Dowager to save the princess? The Empress Dowager. Is she finally willing to forgive the princess? Gu Jiao didn't directly answer her question. Instead, she asked, did the prince consort come into contact with the princess after coming up the mountain? Lien thought for a while and said, the prince consort came to visit the princess once, but the princess said that she was sick in bed and didn't see the prince consort. The prince consort stayed outside for a while and then left. Gu Jiao nodded thoughtfully and said, then, has the princess felt any discomfort recently? For example, high fever, chills, coughing? Lien shook her head. No, the princess is pretending to be sick, but she isn't really sick. If it wasn't contagious, then it was in the incubation period. Gu Jiao felt that it was very likely that it wasn't contagious. After all, she didn't pay attention to the prince consort and the prince consort didn't force himself to get close to her. The possibility of contagious breathing and droplets was almost zero. By the way, what's your name? Lien asked. Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao said. Lien asked, then should I call you Miss Gu or Little Brother Gu? It's up to you. It was just a name, so Gu Jiao didn't care. Lien scratched her head and said, when we're fighting outside, I'll call you Little Brother Gu? Little Brother Gu, hurry up and leave with me. The princess can't delay for long. The prince consort will come to kill you later. The prince consort wanted to kill her, so Gu Jiao naturally had to leave. However, she couldn't leave by herself. She had to take Princess Ning away. Gu Jiao turned and entered the house. Take Dr. Tong with you now. Don't let the prince consort see you. Then, pack up the princess things as soon as possible and prepare to go down the mountain. Lien subconsciously followed her in. As soon as one foot touched the ground, she remembered Gu Jiao's faintness. She coughed lightly and moved her foot back. No, I can't disobey the princess's orders. The princess wants me to leave. If I don't take you with me, she'll be angry. Gu Jiao opened the small medicine box and took out a few masks. Being angry is better than dying here. Besides, if I don't want to leave, you can't take me with you. Lien whispered, are you very good at fighting? If I forcefully take you with me, will you knock me out? Gu Jiao. Lien cleared her throat and said seriously, I know. I can't beat you. I'll report to the princess now. Gu Jiao gave the masks to Dr. Tong and asked her to put them on the princess and the people around her. What about you? Dr. Tong asked. I'm going to get something, Gu Jiao said. Gu Jiao had more or less figured out the layout of this place from Dr. Tong's descriptions. 200 steps east was King Yi's residence. 30 steps north of King Yi's residence was Princess Ning, An and the prince consort's residence. Gu Jiao avoided the patrolling guards and snuck into King Yi's courtyard. Probably because they didn't want too many soldiers to be infected by King Yi, some of the heavy guards had been removed. This made things easier for Gu Jiao. Dr. Tong had never been to King Yi's residence, so she couldn't give Gu Jiao a detailed description of the layout. Gu Jiao accidentally stumbled into King Yi's bedroom. King Yi was asleep, and there were only 2 doctors kneeling outside the screen to boil medicine for him. Gu Jiao tiptoed to King Yi's bedside. Gu Jiao pulled out her dagger, but put it away after taking his pulse. The illness was beyond cure, and there was no cure. She didn't want to waste her energy. Gu Jiao searched the room for a while. About 15 minutes later, she came out of King Yi's residence. At this time, the prince consort also happened to come out of his own courtyard. He carried his sword and walked towards the small room where Gu Jiao was imprisoned. Gu Jiao had to take Princess Ning away before he realized that she had escaped and returned. There wasn't much time left for her. She also had to find her red tasseled spear. Gu Jiao snuck into the prince consort and Princess Ning An's courtyard. Little brother Gu. Little brother Gu. Dr. Tong tried her best to keep her voice low. Gu Jiao turned her head and walked towards Dr. Tong, who was at the corner. Dr. Tong didn't care about the boundaries between men and women. Besides, he was much older than Gu Jiao. He pulled Gu Jiao behind a large tree and whispered to Gu Jiao, "Have you thought it through? Are you really going to take the princess down the mountain? If you take the princess away, the prince consort won't let you off. He'll catch up very soon. The princess won't be able to leave. Why don't you leave by yourself?" Although the prince consort and the princess were at odds, it was because the prince consort betrayed the princess and the imperial court. The princess didn't betray the prince consort, so the prince consort couldn't let go of her. He wouldn't allow anyone to take her away. Gu Jiao looked at him calmly and asked, "Do you have anything to pack?" "Ah." Dr. Tong was startled. Weren't they talking about the princess? Why did they talk about him? Gu Jiao said, "If you don't, then go to the princess's place and wait for me." "You?" Dr. Tong seemed to have realized something. His breathing stopped as he stared at Gu Jiao in a daze. Gu Jiao ignored him and went to find her red tasseled spear. Her luck wasn't bad. The second room she entered was the prince consort's study. Her red tasseled spear was hanging on the weapon rack. However, the small braid at the tip of the red tasseled spear had been untied and the large red flower on the spear was gone. Gu Jiao narrowed her eyes and her gaze slowly turned cold. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964282413998. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 520. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that cannot be found on the internet will be available here. On the other side, the man with a silver fox walked towards Gu Jiao with a murderous look. The patrolling soldiers were frightened by his imposing manner and did not even dare to salute him. It was no wonder that the man with a silver fox was so angry. He was smart all his life, but he was stupid at this moment. He had made such a big mistake in the hands of a brat. He was unwilling to admit his stupidity and did not want to regret. If he had not been obstinate and self-opinionated and listened to his uncle, what would have happened? But there were no ifs in this world, only consequences and results. He could not deceive himself. He regretted that he did not meet that soldier from the Zhao kingdom. If he was given another chance, he would definitely kill him without hesitation. It was too late to kill him now. But he had nowhere to vent his anger. He had to do something. But the man with the silver fox did not expect that when he kicked open Gu Jiao's door, what awaited him was an empty room. "Where is she?" "Doctor." There was no doctor. "Sir." The soldiers who were patrolling nearby walked towards the source of the sound and cupped their fists at the man with the silver fox. The man with the silver fox pointed at the room and said coldly, "Where is the person inside?" The soldier said with a strange look, "Sir, are you asking about Dr. Tong? Didn't you ask Dr. Tong to treat the princess?" "When did I?" The man with the silver fox wanted to say something but stopped. He looked at the empty room and thought of something. His expression changed. He pushed the soldier away and walked towards his own courtyard in big strides. When he was near his courtyard, he heard a commotion. Then, he saw thick smoke and fire not far away. Quick, quick, quick. Water. A corporal ordered the soldiers to fetch water. The scene was in a mess. The man with the silver fox grabbed a soldier who was fetching water and said sternly, "What happened?" The soldier said in shock, "Sir, your courtyard is on fire." His courtyard? The silver fox man's expression changed again. He abandoned the soldiers and rushed over. The fire started from the inside of his study. At first, the soldiers didn't notice it, but by the time it reached the outside, the fire was already quite big. Almost all the documents and important objects in the study were burned to ashes. Jade disc. The imperial jade plate of the Great Li dynasty. That was the genealogy of the Huangfu clan. Every heir of the imperial family was recorded on the jade disc. It was the only thing that could trace their identities. Without the jade disc, who knew what kind of descendants the Huangfu family had left? Who knew what kind of relationship Huangfu Zhang had with the previous dynasty? If the imperial jade seal was lost, it could be found. If it was broken, it could be repaired. However, if the genealogy of the royal family was lost, it would be irretrievable. This fire didn't burn the jade disc of the Great Li dynasty, but the fate of the Huangfu clan. The Huangfu clan was done for. Huangfu Zhang stared in disbelief at the fire that seemed to be burning the Huangfu family's fortune. His heart was boiling with anger. His body was on the verge of collapsing. He refused to accept the thought that flashed through his mind. His hand that was holding the sword began to tremble slightly. "Is the princess all right?" He suppressed his anger and asked the soldier beside him. The soldier said, "The princess went out." Huangfu Zheng frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" The soldier replied, "The princess said that she went out for a walk." Huangfu Zhang had never restricted Princess Ning An's freedom to leave the courtyard. As long as she was on the mountain, she could go anywhere she wanted. However, she didn't leave the courtyard a few days ago. Why did she go out today? Only then did Huangfu Zhang remember that Princess Ning An had summoned Dr. Tong to treat her illness. He had hurried over because he felt that something was wrong. However, when he saw the fire, he forgot about the important matter. No, the fire burning the jade disc was the most important thing. However, it was already burning. Could he still grab the ashes of the jade disc and put it together? Huangfu Zheng went to Ning An's room. Nothing seemed to have changed. However, when he looked carefully, he found that Princess Ning An's token was missing. The snacks and dry food on the table were also gone. Huangfu Zheng narrowed his eyes coldly. "Ning An, you'd better not betray me." In the forest behind the mountain, Princess Ning An, who was wearing a sable cloak, slipped and fell heavily. "Princess." Lien hurriedly supported her. Princess Ning An shook her head. "I'm fine." There were 4 of them. Princess Ning An, Lien Dr. Tong, and Gu Jiao. The 4 of them put on masks and braved the biting cold wind as they shuttled through the forest behind the mountain. Princess Ning An was actually not as delicate as the rumors said in the capital. At least, she wasn't now. She had lived in the bitter cold of the frontier fortress for so many years, often mingling with the herdsmen. She had herded the sheep, farmed the fields, and done the dirty and tiring work. Her hands were no longer the slender jade-like hands that had lived a pampered life. Her face had also lost its fair and translucent skin due to weathering and exposure to the sun. However, she still had the noble aura of a royal family. Ah! Princess Ning An fell again. Soon, Dr. Tong also fell down. There was no other way. The snow was too deep. "Princess, let me carry you," Lien said. Princess Ning An waved her hand. "You can't carry me. I'm too heavy." As she spoke, she turned back to look at the path they had come from. Even though it was night, the moonlight reflected off the snow made the entire back mountain appear very bright. Their mottled footprints could be seen all over the ground. "Let's go quickly," They'll catch up soon. Princess Ning said, panting. Gu Jiao focused and asked Princess Ning, where's the secret passage? Princess Ning raised her sore hand and pointed to the back of the forest. Through this forest, there is an old well. Underneath the well is the secret passage, if I remember correctly. The last sentence made Dr. Tong's eyelids twitch. Princess, what do you mean by, if you remember correctly? Do you know the secret passage or not? Princess Ning said awkwardly, I only saw the blueprint of the secret passage in the study. I roughly remember. Ah. Dr. Tong was mute. If she remembered incorrectly and they were cornered, wouldn't they die even more miserably? Let's go, Gu Jiao said. Dr. Tong gritted her teeth and followed. They had already escaped. There was no way they could go back. Lien and Dr. Tong supported Princess Ning, while Gu Jiao held the red-tasseled spear and tried to keep a safe distance from them. They passed through the forest and arrived near the ancient well. The ancient well was covered by a thick layer of snow. It took them a long time to find the cover. It's locked, Dr. Tong said in despair. Gu Jiao reached out with her red-tasseled spear and easily broke the lock. Dr. Tong was dumbstruck. Gu Jiao lit a match and threw it into the ancient well. She used the light to see the walls and bottom of the well. There was a rope ladder hanging from the wall of the well. The bottom of the well was empty. There was no danger at the moment. I'll go down first, Gu Jiao said. Be careful, Princess Ning said. Mem. Gu Jiao turned back and nodded slightly. She jumped into the well with her red-tasseled spear. Seeing that she didn't use the rope ladder and directly jumped down, they couldn't help but be surprised. Gu Jiao picked up the match and looked around. She looked up and said, There's a passage below. There's no danger at the moment. Come down. Princess, you go down first, Lien said. Princess Ning nodded and slowly went down the rope ladder. Lien was next. She was carrying a bundle and almost got stuck at the mouth of the well. Throw the bundle down, Gu Jiao said to her. Okay. Little brother Gu, you catch it. Lien threw the bundle to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao caught it. Lien carefully climbed down. After she steadied herself, she looked up at the mouth of the well. Dr. Tong, you should come down too. Dr. Tong had one foot on the mouth of the well, but the other foot didn't move. I'm afraid of heights. It's not high. There's a ladder, Lien said. Dr. Tong trembled and was about to cry. No, I really can't do it. At this moment, a soldier yelled, Sir, I'm here. They're over there. In the next second, Dr. Tong put her leg in and went down the ladder with a whoosh. Everyone, Gu Jiao handed the fire torch to Dr. Tong. She quickly climbed up the well and covered the manhole cover. The manhole cover was originally a mechanism. Gu Jiao turned the iron rod under the manhole cover and locked the manhole cover from the inside. She jumped down and said to them, Let's go. They entered the secret passage. The secret passage was pitch black. At first, Gu Jiao could still use a fire starter, but after walking for a while, the fire starter couldn't be lit anymore. Lien, take out the night luminescent pearl. Princess Ning said to Lien, Okay. Lien, took out a night luminescent pearl that was bigger than a fist from the bundle. Gu Jiao had never seen such a big night luminescent pearl before. It was quite strange. Princess Ning looked down and smiled bitterly. Mother gave it to me on my birthday. Gu Jiao didn't know how Princess Ning felt when she mentioned her grandaunt. Her grandaunt had tried to stop this marriage, but Princess Ning had been blinded by love and wholeheartedly wanted to marry the prince consort. What she got in return was a scheme and a betrayal. I don't know if Mother still wants to see me. She does, Gu Jiao said. Her grandaunt had never forgotten Princess Ning tears flashed in Princess Ning's eyes, but she didn't cry. She held it in. The sound in the secret passage was very loud. Gu Jiao could hear them prying open the cover of the well and chasing after them like a flood. Other than Gu Jiao, the other 3 couldn't walk fast. In the end, they were caught in a large cave. One end of the cave was connected to the secret passage they came from. The other end was a rope bridge hanging over the cliff. The moonlight and the snow on the cliff slowly shone into the cave. The cave was lit up. Gu Jiao threw the small basket to Dr. Tong and stood in front of the 3. She looked coldly at the pursuers entering the cave. "You go first. No one is allowed to leave today." Huang Fu Zheng's voice came from behind the army. The soldiers in the cave immediately parted to make a path. Huang Fu Zheng walked over with a cold expression. His eyes fell on Gu Jiao. He narrowed his eyes slightly. "I underestimated you. You have an epidemic disease and frostbite, but you still have the strength to struggle." Epidemic disease. Lien looked at Gu Jiao in disbelief. Dr. Tong also looked over in shock. Huang Fu Zheng took in their expressions and shifted his gaze to the expressionless Princess Ning N. Princess Ning N didn't look at him. She didn't even want to look at him. Huang Fu Zheng clenched his fists. "It seems that you don't know that she has an epidemic disease. She brought the disease here. She is dying. If you follow her out, you will be infected by her sooner or later and die of the disease." Lien was so scared that she moved closer to Princess Ning, and Dr. Tong looked at Gu Jiao in a daze. The medicine you gave me, is it to cure the disease?" Huang Fu Zheng frowned. He looked at Gu Jiao, who could move freely, and then at Dr. Tong, who didn't look sick at all. In a trance, he realized something. He said excitedly, "You have medicine to cure the disease." "Even if I do, I won't give it to you," Gu Jiao said in a low voice. She deliberately lowered her voice, and with a layer of iron mask, at first glance, it sounded like the voice of an androgynous teenager. Huang Fu Zheng laughed. "God doesn't want me to die." No one knew how excited Huang Fu Zheng was at this moment. He thought that he was going to die, but this guy had medicine. It was a medicine that could really cure the disease. He and his uncle could be saved. Gu Jiao didn't bring anything with her. Instead, Dr. Tong carried her own medicine box and Gu Jiao's small basket. Huang Fu Zheng smirked coldly. "Leave this brat to me. You guys go and stop them." "Yes." He looked at Princess Ning and, "Don't hurt the princess." "Yes." The soldiers swarmed forward. Gu Jiao raised her red spear. Huang Fu Zheng jumped up and fought with her. Huang Fu Zheng snorted. "Boy, I saved you. If it weren't for me, you would have frozen to death in the snow. It's fine if you don't thank me, but you repay my kindness with ingratitude. You hurt me and my uncle, and you even tried to kidnap the princess." "Not kidnap, rescue." Gu Jiao swung her spear. Huang Fu Zheng raised his sword to block. The two sides fought fiercely in the cave. Huang Fu Zheng sneered. "Boy, you are no match for me." Gu Jiao was still sick, so her strength was reduced. However, Huang Fu Zheng was infected with the disease. He was not much stronger than Gu Jiao. When Gu Jiao stabbed at Huang Fu Zheng again, Huang Fu Zheng couldn't block it. His long sword was broken. Gu Jiao's red tasseled spear pierced through his shoulder. Then Gu Jiao kicked him to the ground. Huang Fu Zheng spat out a mouthful of blood. He didn't expect this boy to be so good at fighting. No wonder he could kill Sky Wolf. Gu Jiao's kung fu was not as good as Huang Fu Zheng's. However, if Gu Jiao wanted to die, would Huang Fu Zheng dare to? Gu Jiao's eyes were like a ferocious wolf. She took a few steps forward and attacked Huang Fu Zheng fiercely. She was running out of energy. She had to solve this problem before that happened. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/10921756. HTML genius memorized the website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 521. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. However, just as Gu Jiao was about to cut off Huang Fu Zheng's neck, a soldier on the other side grabbed Dr. Tong and held a knife to her neck. "Stop, or I'll kill him." Gu Jiao turned around and looked at him coldly. The soldier trembled under her murderous gaze. Before the soldier could threaten her, Gu Jiao's red tasseled spear flew out and pierced the soldier's head. Dr. Tong felt a hot wave of heat shoot towards his face. He closed his eyes and froze. He didn't dare to think if it was blood or brain matter. Huang Fu Zheng was shocked by the scene in front of him. He knew that the person who could kill Sirius wasn't an ordinary person, but he didn't expect her to be so decisive and ruthless. When he was threatened, he didn't hesitate at all. At that moment, Huang Fu Zheng's blood was boiling. He was excited, fearful, and looked up to an expert. Huang Fu Zheng looked at Gu Jiao in disbelief. Gu Jiao stepped on his chest. His ribs broke instantly and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He trembled in pain. Gu Jiao looked down at him from above, her emotionless eyes filled with coldness. Killing someone wasn't scary. What was scary was how calm she was when she did it. Huang Fu Zheng felt his soul tremble. Gu Jiao only needed a little more force to step on his ribs and into his lungs. At this critical moment, Huang Fu Zheng still didn't give up and looked at Princess Ning En. Princess Ning En turned her face away. "Ning En," he said, enduring the pain. Princess Ning En's throat moved. He didn't know if she heard him or not, but she didn't turn to look at him. Huang Fu Zheng suddenly smiled. "My uncle has no son. He once said that if he became the emperor, he would make me the crown prince. At that time, I thought that if I became the crown prince, you would be my empress." "Ningen, what's wrong with being the empress? Why don't you want it? They killed your mother. They are your enemies. You would rather return to their side than be my empress." "Ningen, are you done?" Gu Jiao asked calmly. Huang Fu Zheng coughed out a mouthful of blood. He withdrew his gaze from Princess Ning En and looked at Gu Jiao mockingly. "Do you really think you can leave after killing me? Do you know how much effort I put into building this secret passage? If I don't want you to leave, none of you can leave." "Including the princess?" Gu Jiao asked. Huang Fu Zheng recognized that she was a girl. Unfortunately, his attention was not on Gu Jiao's voice. He said, "Yes, including her." Gu Jiao said again, "You are dying, but you don't let her leave. Is this how you treat her?" Huang Fu Zheng gritted his teeth. "As long as you are willing to give me the medicine, I won't die, and Ningen won't lose her husband." "Oh, you mean, it's my fault?" Gu Jiao tilted her head coldly and looked at him. "You are the one who caused the epidemic." Huang Fu Zheng's confidence was completely crushed by her words. In the end, it was all about harming oneself. Huang Fu Zheng was seriously injured. He was so angry that his intestines turned green with regret. He coughed out another mouthful of blood. "Let him die on his own." Princess Ning En suddenly turned around, her voice trembling uncontrollably. "Anyway, he has the epidemic. He can't live." Huang Fu Zheng's eyes lit up when he heard Princess Ning En pleading for him. However, the next second, he heard Princess Ning En say, "When we cross the bridge, cut it off." This was the only secret passage. If the bridge was broken, they would never be able to get out. Huang Fu Zheng's expression froze. "Ningen, why are you forcing me?" "Miss Gu, let's go." Princess Ning En walked out of the cave without looking back. Gu Jiao walked over and pulled out her red tasseled spear. Huang Fu Zheng looked at Princess Ning En's back and said, I told you, you can't get away. Only I can get out of this secret passage. If you don't believe me, you can try. Princess Ning and had one foot on the cable bridge. She paused for a moment, but did not pay attention to it. She walked forward. Something incredible happened. The moment the cable bridge swayed, the cliff on the other side suddenly shook. It was as if something was splitting open, and then a stone door was revealed. With a loud bang, the stone door opened, and a death warrior full of murderous aura walked out from inside. The man was as tall and strong as Sky Wolf, and his aura was almost the same as Sky Wolf's. Gu Jiao's eyes turned cold. This was... Huang Fu Zheng sneered. Yes, it's Sky Wolf, the second Sky Wolf. Do you think I only have one Sky Wolf? Although he is not as powerful as Sky Wolf, he is not much weaker. He is more than enough to deal with you. Gu Jiao was so exhausted that it was difficult for her to breathe. She could barely kill Huang Fu Zheng. If Sky Wolf came, she would have no chance of winning. Huang Fu Zheng said arrogantly, "Give me the medicine, and I'll leave your body intact." "Don't hurt her." Princess Ning walked quickly to Gu Jiao. "Do it," Huang Fu Zheng said to the man of sacrifice. The man of sacrifice was incredibly fast. He crossed the cable bridge in an instant, passed Princess Ning and came to Gu Jiao's back. He grabbed Gu Jiao's neck, intending to lift Gu Jiao up high. But before he could exert his strength, another strong figure came from the cable bridge. A sharp sword chi cut the man of sacrifice's back. The man of sacrifice did not have time to dodge. He was hit, and the armor on his body cracked. Almost at the same time, Gu Jiao blocked his shoulder with a red-tasseled spear. She lifted her foot and kicked him in the chest, using the force to break free from his hands. The man of sacrifice was not injured by this kick, but after being hit twice, he was really angry. He raised his hand to grab Gu Jiao, but Gu Chongqing quickly flashed to Gu Jiao and stabbed the man of sacrifice's wrist. The man of sacrifice's wrist armor cracked. Gu Chongqing held Gu Jiao's waist. He stepped back a dozen steps and gently put his sister down at the entrance of the cave. His hand holding the sword was full of murderous intent. He looked at Gu Jiao with gentle and loving eyes. "Can you still walk? Cross the bridge first and wait for me there." Gu Jiao nodded. The soldiers in the cave were not a threat. They had been scared silly by Gu Jiao's headshot. Almost no one dared to stop her. Gu Jiao, Princess Ning and the others got on the cable bridge. "Stop them!" Huang Fu Zheng shouted. Gu Chongqing blocked the entrance of the cave with his long sword. He looked coldly at the man of sacrifice charging at him. He said to Gu Jiao, "Get on the bridge and don't look back." "Okay." She did not look back. Gu Jiao led the way onto the bridge. Princess Ning, An and Lien followed closely behind. Dr. Tong brought up the rear. But he really was afraid of heights. This time, it was not an ancient well under his feet, but a bottomless abyss. And the cable bridge would shake. Sob, sob, sob. It was too difficult for him. "They're coming," Gu Jiao said. "Ah!" Dr. Tong waved her arms and leaped over with a whoosh. He was the first to reach the cliff on the other side. The sounds of fighting came from behind them. Cold wind blew from the cave towards the cable bridge. Gu Jiao smelled the thick scent of blood. She didn't know if it was the man of sacrifices or Gu Chongqing's. She was obedient. She did not look back. The group crossed the bridge and entered the cave on the other side of the cliff. Snow fell from the sky again. They could not see what was happening on the other side of the bridge, even if they wanted to. They could only hear the sound of bones breaking and blades breaking. Then, they heard footsteps on the cable bridge. The footsteps approached quickly, bringing with them a thick scent of blood and killing intent. Then, a loud bang was heard. Shockingly, the cable bridge behind them had been cut apart. Gu Jiao quickly turned around. The figure with the scent of blood and killing intent came over and gently pulled her into his embrace, but he did not let his blood-stained arm touch her. "Didn't I tell you not to look back? You're not obedient at all." His murderous aura dissipated in an instant. Gu Jiao's little head was against his chest. She pointed behind her. "That's behind me, I didn't look back." Gu Chongqing couldn't help smiling. His lips curled, twisting words. Gu Jiao sniffed. "You're injured." Gu Chongqing said, "No, it's his blood." "Is he dead?" Gu Jiao asked. He would not let off a single person that bullied his little sister. The snow that filled the sky poured into the cave. The death warrior was stabbed in the chest by a huge broken ice pillar. Beside him, the prince consort was stabbed in the heart by a sharp sword. He turned his head and looked at the cave on the other side of the rope bridge. Not only did Gu Jiao not look back, Ning An didn't look back either. Princess Ning An only saw half of the map. They had to figure out the rest of the way by themselves. They passed through countless caves in the mountain range. Even they weren't sure where they were at the end. Gu Chongqing carried Gu Jiao on his back and her red tasseled spear hung in front of him. "I'm sick," Gu Jiao said. "It's an epidemic, so you have to put me down," Gu Jiao said in a doctor's tone. It was very serious. However, to Gu Chongqing, it sounded like his sister was seriously ill and his sister felt wronged. "It's my fault." Gu Chongqing apologized sincerely. "I didn't take good care of you." Gu Jiao. "What was going on?" Gu Jiao said, "I don't want you to carry me." Gu Chongqing said, "Then I'll carry you." Gu Jiao said, "I don't want you to carry me either." Gu Chongqing thought about it seriously. "Then, should I let you ride on my neck?" Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao put on a mask and Gu Chongqing also put one on. In addition, Gu Chongqing also took the medicine to prevent the epidemic. Of course, Princess Ning An and Lien also took it. The brother and sister duo walked at the front. The other three already knew that Gu Chongqing was the young master of the Gu army and that Gu Jiao was his sister. Along the way, Gu Chongqing would give anything good to his sister first. If he had to carry anything, he would only carry his sister. In his eyes, he was his sister's brother first and then Princess Ning An's minister. "How did you find this place?" Gu Jiao asked. Gu Chongqing said casually, "I asked an aide of the previous dynasty about the map of the stronghold and the secret passage." He didn't want her to know how he had asked her. He already knew why Gu Jiao went to kill Sirius. He didn't find Gu Jiao in the forest that day, so he returned to the governor's residence to see if he could find any clues. In the end, he really did learn a thing or two from an aide of the emperor's son-in-law who had been imprisoned. It turned out that the emperor's son-in-law had bought a group of powerful men of sacrifice from the Yen kingdom. The leader was called Sirius, and the second most likely was the one he had just killed. The emperor's son-in-law and Prince Yi found the plague victims to infect the Gu army, and the emperor's son-in-law bought Sirius from the Yen kingdom to deal with Gu Chongqing. They wanted Gu Chongqing's legs and made Gu Chongqing lose everything, so that he would live the rest of his life like a ghost. Gu Jiao must have accidentally learned of the emperor's son-in-law's plan. She did it for him. When he thought of this, Gu Chongqing's heart ached. He had the best younger sister in the world, so he also wanted to be her best older brother. "You're disobedient," Dr. Gu sternly said before falling asleep on Gu Chongqing's shoulder. When Gu Chongqing heard the even breathing on his back, his eyes flashed with tenderness. He raised the cloak in his hand and gently covered her petite body. No matter how much she suffered, he would return the pain bit by bit. The biting cold wind and snow flew over, cutting his face like knives, but none of it blew on Gu Jiao's body. She fell into a deep sleep on his warm and broad back. The power of the previous dynasty had completely collapsed. The Chen Kingdom's army in Beiyang City and Yi City only had 80,000 soldiers left. On the 27th day of the 11th month, Gu Chongqing led the 60,000 Gu army to attack Beiyang City. In one night, they killed 20,000 of the enemy. Prince Bo was no match for them, so he led the remaining 20,000 Chen Kingdom soldiers to abandon the city and regroup with the 40,000 Rong army in Yi City. 3 days later, Gu Chongqing led the 90,000 Gu army and arrived at the city gates. At this time, the 80,000 Chen Kingdom reinforcements arrived. Prince Bo was overjoyed. He planned to split up with the 80,000 reinforcements and attack the Gu army from the front and back, but he didn't expect the leader of the 80,000 reinforcements to be Yuan Tang. Yuan Tang rode on a tall horse and looked at Prince Bo and Rong Yao on the city gate tower. He showed the yellow imperial edict in his hand and said concisely, "I'm here on my father's orders to clean up the rebels. Those who surrender will be forgiven, and those who rebel will be killed." There were nearly 100,000 Gu army soldiers and 80,000 Chen kingdom soldiers. Prince Bo and Rong Yao's 60,000 men were surrounded by enemies. There was no way they could win. Not to mention that Yuan Tang had the imperial edict, so he had a good reason to attack. The morale of the 60,000 Chen kingdom soldiers plummeted. Yuan Tang looked at Rong Yao and smiled obediently. "Uncle, my father wants to capture Prince Bo. If you kill him, you can redeem yourself." As he spoke, he seemed to be afraid that Rong Yao wouldn't believe him. He handed the imperial edict to a soldier and had the soldier bring it into the city. The imperial edict did say that the traitor Prince Bo was to be killed. Rong Yao held the imperial edict and his eyes flashed. Prince Bo trembled. "Rong Yao, don't be fooled by this father and son. You've already rebelled. If you kill me, my brother won't let you go." Rong Yao said coldly, "The king won't let me go after I return to the capital. But if I don't kill you, Yuan Tang won't let me go now. So, I'm sorry. Prince Bo." Gu Chongqing wasn't interested in fighting in the Chen kingdom, but if he could subdue the enemy without fighting, it would be a good idea. Prince Bo and Rong Yao began to fight on the city gate tower. Yuan Tang rode his horse calmly towards Gu Chongqing. The Gu army wanted to stop him, but Gu Chongqing raised his hand to stop them. The fact that Yuan Tang had come alone was enough to show his sincerity. Yuan Tang stopped in front of Gu Chongqing's horse, raised his eyebrows and introduced himself. "Dr. Gu's friend, Yuan Tang." Gu Chongqing looked at him deeply, straightened his back, and said with a rare boastful tone, "Jiao Jiao's older brother, Gu Chongqing." The Gu army was speechless. Isn't this introduction a bit wrong? Shouldn't it be the sixth prince of the Chen kingdom and the young master of the Gu army? In your eyes, these two identities can't compare to Dr. Gu's friend and Jiao Jiao's older brother? Digression: when I return to the capital tomorrow, I just took a look. I'm only 4 votes away from breaking the 100 mark. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1092164330. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 522. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Prince Bo is a member of the royal family. Although he can be considered a martial artist, he can't be compared to Rong Yao, who is a famous general on the battlefield. In the end, Prince Bo was seriously injured by Rong Yao and died. "I was reckless. I wanted to capture him alive, but this person was too difficult to deal with. I accidentally killed him. Please punish me, Your Highness." This is what Rong Yao said when he walked down the tower and came to Yuan Tang. Yuan Tang was still by Gu Chongqing's side, riding a tall horse. He looked down at his own uncle, Rong Yao. He laughed coldly in his heart. Even his uncle wouldn't believe this kind of nonsense. Well, if he didn't kill Prince Bo, what would happen if Prince Bo returned to the palace and said something unfavorable to Rong Yao? This uncle of his is really far-sighted and ruthless. But does he really think that without Prince Bo, nothing will go wrong? Yuan Tang looked at Rong Yao with a faint smile and said, "Uncle, you have worked hard. You have contributed greatly by killing the rebels. When we return to the capital, Father will definitely reward you accordingly." Rong Yao kneels down on one knee and says with a face full of fear and trepidation, "I don't dare to reward you. I only want to make up for my mistakes. I was also bewitched by Prince Bo. I really thought that everything was the Emperor's will. Who would have thought that this person made up the imperial edict and caused us to follow him on an expedition? Your Highness, please investigate this matter." Gu Chongqing's thin lips move. Ha. Rong Yao's face becomes very ugly. Rong Yao's youngest son, Rong Fu, died at the hands of Gu Chongqing. Rong Yao has a lot of resentment towards Gu Chongqing, but people under the eaves have to bow down. Yuan Tang looks at Gu Chongqing and then at Rong Yao and says, "Uncle, you are too serious. When we return to the capital, Father will investigate the truth. As long as you have a clear conscience, I believe that one day the truth will be revealed." A layer of cold sweat appeared on Rong Yao's forehead. He didn't dare to raise his head to look into Yuan Tang's eyes. He could already feel the threat from Yuan Tang. "Your Highness, may I have a word with you?" Rong Yao said to Yuan Tang. Yuan Tang rode his horse back to the camp of the Chen State's army. General Zhang looked at their backs and said to Gu Chongqing, "General, I'm afraid that the one surnamed Rong wants to fight. The 80,000 reinforcements from the state of Chen and the 60,000 soldiers from Yi City greatly outnumbered the Gu army. If they really fought, it would definitely be a bloody battle." There was no trace of anxiety on Gu Chongqing's face. He said calmly, "Yuan Tang won't agree. If Yuan Tang really wanted to start a war, they wouldn't have come alone, and they wouldn't have introduced themselves as Gu Jiao's friends." It wasn't clear what Yuan Tang said to Rong Yao, but Rong Yao was on the verge of exploding. Yuan Tang ignored him and ordered the 60,000 soldiers of the state of Chen to leave Yi City. Of course, this wasn't over. The state of Chen was the one who violated the peace treaty and started the war. All the losses would be borne by the state of Chen. For the state of Chen, which had already suffered losses, this was like adding fuel to the fire. But this time, Yuan Tang truly saw the cruelty of war and the terrible price it brought. If Yuan Tang was still thinking about starting a war with the state of Zhao when he was a hostage, then he no longer had such thoughts. War was a struggle for power between those in power, but the ones who paid with their lives were the innocent soldiers and civilians. Yuan Tang rode his horse to the camp of the Gu army again. He said to Gu Chongqing seriously, "If you trust me, I want to escort Rong Yao back to the capital of the state of Chen. Later, I will personally go to the capital of the state of Zhao to ask for forgiveness and negotiate with the emperor." Yuan Tang was still a hostage of the state of Chen. Logically speaking, he was going to return to the capital with Gu Chongqing. Letting him go was like letting a tiger return to the mountain. Without waiting for Gu Chongqing to answer, Yuan Tang said again, "But before that, I hope to go to Yuegu City with you and pay a visit to the Grand Marshal and the old Marquis." "Okay," Gu Chongqing said. Yuan Tang had followed Gu Chongqing to ancient Moon City alone. This magnanimity and courage made people look at him in a new light. But when they actually arrived at Yuegu City, Gu Chongqing realized that he had been tricked. This kid didn't come to visit Tang Yueshan and his grandfather. He was clearly here to see his sister. As soon as Yuan Tang entered the city, he went to the wounded barracks. "Dr. Gu, I'm here." Looking at Yuan Tang, who didn't treat him as an outsider at all, Gu Chongqing narrowed his eyes dangerously. Gu Jiao's disease had long been cured and he had passed the quarantine period. At this time, he was guiding a few soldiers in rehabilitation in the wounded barracks. He was wearing the armor of a general of the state of Chen. When he suddenly barged in, the soldiers in the wounded barracks were so shocked that they immediately pulled out the swords beside the bed. Yuan Tang clicked his tongue, took off the sword at his waist, and threw it to the nearest wounded soldier. "Take it." The wounded soldier was speechless. Gu Jiao's expression was very calm. He only glanced at Yuan Tang, then said to the recovering soldier beside him, "You continue." The recovering soldier continued to walk forward with the help of his crutches. Yuan Tang stood beside Gu Jiao uninvited and said exaggeratedly, "You're not excited to see me at all. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have come to see you." "What's the matter?" Gu Jiao asked. Yuan Tang opened his mouth, but it seemed that there was nothing. He clicked his tongue and said, "Aren't you going to ask me what I'm doing at the frontier fortress?" Gu Jiao said, "Oh, to kill Prince Bo or to kill Rong Yao?" Yuan Tang was speechless. "Here for you." Yuan Tang handed a small bag that he always carried with him to her. "What is it?" Gu Jiao asked. Yuan Tang stuffed the bag into her arms and said, "The begonia flower box is for you. The bamboo box is for my cousin. I have to go back to the capital to deal with my uncle. I might not be able to go to Zhaodu for a while. Bring it to my cousin for me." "Okay." Gu Jiao agreed. Yuan Tang raised his eyebrows and said, "Don't think too much about it. I'm only giving you this gift to thank you for helping my cousin. Moreover, it was thanks to your husband that I was able to escape from Zhaodu. Originally, Yuan Tang thought that he had hidden it well and did not let Xiao Lulang know. But after thinking about it carefully, Xiao Lulang was supposed to be on duty at the yamen, but he suddenly changed his route and went out of the capital's north gate. He even stopped at the relay station for a while. Perhaps Xiao Lulang had already discovered him and deliberately sent him away. Gu Jiao did not know that there was such a thing. It was really fortunate that Xiao Hang let Yuan Tang go. Otherwise, this battle would not have ended so quickly. Moreover, both sides would have suffered a lot of casualties. Yuan Tang said, "Okay, I've said everything that needs to be said. I should go now. Remember to tell my cousin to miss me." Hearing this, Gu Chongqing finally sheathed his sword. Yuan Tang spurred his horse and left Yuegu City. Looking at his receding figure, General Zhang asked, "General, are we really letting him go just like that? The state of Chen has 140,000 soldiers. If he starts a war with us now—" "He won't," Gu Chongqing said. Zhao Jiao believed in him, so he believed in him. Gu Jiao came out of the wounded barracks and saw Gu Chongqing waiting at the door. "Are you here to change your bandages?" Gu Jiao asked. Gu Chongqing said seriously, "Yes." Gu Jiao took him to the tent next door and cut the gauze on his hands with scissors. This was not the injury he got when he held the red tasseled spear to protect Gu Jiao when she lost control when he first came to Yuegu City. It was the injury he got when he went to the nest of the remnants of the previous dynasty to find Gu Jiao. Gu Chongqing skimmed over the incident that day, but the process was far more difficult and complicated than he imagined. He learned from his advisor that the map of the previous dynasty's army's nest and the secret passage was not fake. Unfortunately, the map was incomplete, and the wooden bridge leading to the nest was destroyed by Huangfu Zheng. Gu Chongqing stood on the cliff for a long time. He was sure that unless he grew wings, it was impossible for him to fly over with his qinggong. He planned to go down the mountain first, go around the foot of the mountain, and then climb to the top of the opposite mountain. The hardships were self-evident. Fortunately, although the map was incomplete, the general direction was correct. He climbed the cliff with great difficulty and almost fell into the bottomless abyss several times. At that time, he only had one thought in his mind. He wanted to live and find his sister alive. The injury on his hands was from climbing the cliff, and it had not healed yet. He also led troops to fight, and it was torn repeatedly. In Gu Chongqing's eyes, this injury was nothing. If Gu Jiao was not here, he would not have bothered to change his dressing. "You can't get injured again, or your hands will be crippled," Gu Jiao said seriously as she changed his dressing. Gu Chongqing smiled gently. "Yes, I won't. The war is over." "The thread here can be removed," Gu Jiao said as she looked at the wound on the back of his left hand. Gu Chongqing obediently stretched out his hand. Gu Jiao took out a sterilized pair of scissors. "It will hurt a little." Gu Chongqing said, "It won't hurt. It won't hurt even if you get stitches." There was no anesthetic, so it would be strange if it didn't hurt. At the mention of this, Gu Jiao's hand paused. After escaping from the mountains, she had stitched up Gu Chongqing's wounds. At that time, there happened to be a wounded soldier who also needed stitches. However, there was only one anesthetic in the small medicine box. Gu Chongqing gave the anesthetic to the wounded soldier because he did not need it. He was a martial artist, so it was inevitable for him to get injured. Occasionally, when his injuries were serious, he would need to drink a little anesthetic soup. However, no matter what kind of anesthetic soup it was ineffective on him. Gu Jiao could not help but remember when she first came to the capital. When she stitched up Gu Chongqing's wounds for the first time, there was no anesthetic in the small medicine box. At that time, she did not think too much about it. Now that she thought about it, perhaps the small medicine box had already determined that the patient could not tolerate anesthesia. So, all the big and small wounds on his body were stitched up without anesthesia at all? Gu Chongqing stared at Gu Jiao and smiled gently. It doesn't hurt, really. Gu Jiao answered seriously, but her movements were much lighter. The war was over, and the plague patient had recovered. Now, it was time for Gu Jiao's group to return to the capital. Tang Yueshan left behind a portion of the garrison. Gu Chongqing also left behind 20,000 Gu clan soldiers to assist in the reconstruction of the three cities after the disaster. After the governors of Beiyang City and Yi City were killed, the imperial court issued edicts overnight to appoint 2 new governors. When the new governors arrived at their respective residences, the Gu clan army and the imperial court's garrison were ready to go. Princess Ning was going to return to the capital with them. It was the old Marquis's task to bring Princess Ning back to the capital. Currently, the old Marquis was still recovering in bed, so Gu Chongqing came forward to ask Princess Ning for instructions. In the governor's residence, Gu Chongqing met with Princess Ning in the study. Ever since Princess Ning came down from the mountain, she had been staying in her room. She did not go out or speak to anyone. Gu Chongqing understood that the matter of the remnants of the previous dynasty had a great impact on her, so he never mentioned the war or the prince consort in front of her. Gu Chongqing cupped his hands in greeting and said seriously, "We'll be returning to the capital tomorrow morning. Does the princess have any other orders?" Princess Ning stared blankly at the snowy scenery outside the window. After a while, she muttered, "On the way back to the capital, can we go to Ji City to pick up someone?" As she spoke, she seemed to be afraid of troubling Gu Chongqing, so she added, "There's no need for too many people. A few people will be enough. It won't be hard for him to pick up." Gu Chongqing roughly understood who they were going to pick up. He said, "I will go personally." "I want to go too." In another room in the governor's residence, Gu Changfeng, who had already taken off the splint on his arm and was back to full health, exploded. He had finally recovered from his injuries and planned to go to the battlefield to fight to his heart's content, but in the end, he was told that the Chen kingdom had surrendered. He had just become a part of the Gu clan's army and had assumed the title for nothing. The main reason was that he wanted his eldest brother to witness his strength. "Okay." Gu Chongqing agreed. Gu Changfeng was excited the entire night. Finally, he could go on a mission with his eldest brother. Unexpectedly, when he walked out of the military camp fully armed, he saw Gu Jiao by his eldest brother's side. Gu Changfeng's face instantly darkened. "She's going too? Wasn't it just him? Why did a servant girl have the honor of fighting side by side with his eldest brother? Get on the horse." Gu Chongqing patted his horse and said, "Humph, that's more like it." Gu Changfeng curled his lips and walked towards his eldest brother's horse. He had been eyeing his eldest brother's horse for a long time. In their family, other than his grandfather's horse, his eldest brother's horse was the best. It was even better than the horse he had stolen from the prince consort. "Not you." Gu Chongqing blocked him mercilessly. He carried Gu Jiao by the waist and gently placed her on the horse's back. He said gently, "Sit tight." Gu Jiao nodded. Gu Chongqing flipped over and sat on Gu Jiao's horse. Then, the two of them left like a cloud of dust. Gu Changfeng was left behind with a dumbfounded expression. "Hey! Have you all forgotten something?" The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/109193415. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 523. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The person Gu Chongqing and Gu Jiao were going to pick up was the son of Princess Ning, An and Huangfu Zheng. He was 13 years old this year. When Princess Ning An mentioned him, she didn't say much. She only said, "He's not in good health." But when the three of them arrived at the address Princess Ning An provided, they realized that they had underestimated the meaning of "not in good health." It was a young man sitting in a wheelchair. His cheeks were thin and his skin was pale. He was wrapped in a thick cloak, and the fox fur on his collar fluttered in the cold wind. He had a pair of long and narrow eyes, very much like his father's, and his nose and mouth were very much like his mother's. He sat in a yard full of green bamboo, with only 4 guards around him. When he saw the 3 brothers and sisters in armor, his expression didn't change at all. He just held the wheels of the wheelchair with both hands and said lightly, "You're here to pick me up?" Yes. Gu Chengfeng said blankly. "Let's go." He pushed the wheelchair. Gu Chongqing stared at him and didn't say anything. He walked forward and went behind him to push the wheelchair. "I'll do it." He let go of the wheelchair. "Well, aren't you going to ask who we are?" Gu Chengfeng asked him doubtfully. He said, "If you're not my father's men, then you're my mother's men. My father's army was defeated, so I guess that you were sent by my mother." "Quite smart," Gu Chengfeng muttered. Sigh, to be honest, Gu Chengfeng was a little disappointed. He thought that they were here to save someone, but who would have thought that they were really here to pick him up? He wanted to fight and show his brother his kung fu, but it was a waste. Gu Chongqing pushed the young man out the door. Gu Jiao stood at the door, leaning against the door frame with her arms crossed. When Gu Chongqing pushed the wheelchair over, Gu Jiao glanced at his leg. It was not out of any offense or curiosity. It was purely a doctor's diagnosis of a patient. Unfortunately, his legs were covered with a thick blanket, so Gu Jiao couldn't see anything. In the house, there was a special carriage for the young man. The door at the back could be opened, and when it was lowered, it would be a landslide. Gu Chongqing pushed the wheelchair up and Gu Chengfeng helped to close the door. "Are they leaving together?" Gu Chongqing looked at the 4 guards in the house. The young man said indifferently, "Does the capital lack people to serve me?" There was nothing wrong with his words, but it made people feel that he was not easy to get close to. However, Gu Chongqing originally had no intention of getting close to him. On the way back to the capital, they were lord and minister. Perhaps after returning to the capital, they would become strangers who would never see each other again. There was something on the floor of the carriage to secure the wheelchair, but Gu Chongqing was not familiar with it, so the young man did not remind him. When the coachman was about to start the carriage, Gu Jiao said, "Wait." The coachman stopped. Gu Jiao lifted the curtain and got into the carriage. She pulled out a few wooden buckles hidden in the floor and stuck them on the wheels of the wheelchair. During the entire process, she did not deliberately touch the young man's legs. After doing this, she glanced at the young man, then turned and got out of the carriage. They had set off first, and the army was still behind them. Gu Chongqing found a relay station that they had to pass through on the way back to the capital. He asked for 2 rooms, one for Gu Jiao and one for the young man. The army would arrive at night, so Gu Chongqing and Gu Chengfeng slept in a tent. After the young man entered the relay station, he fell asleep and did not come out to eat dinner. The 3 siblings made a bonfire in the courtyard and roasted some sweet potatoes and bacon. Gu Chongqing brought some food to the stable to feed the horses. Gu Chengfeng and Gu Jiao sat next to the fire. Gu Chengfeng moved closer to Gu Jiao and whispered, "Hey, don't you think that kid is strange?" "How is he strange?" Gu Jiao flipped over the bacon on the fire. Gu Chengfeng swallowed and used a stick to stick a roasted sweet potato. He lowered his voice and said, "His father died, but he doesn't seem to be sad. And his personality, it always gives me a gloomy feeling. And his legs, what do you think is wrong with his legs? Is he injured or crippled?" As Gu Chengfeng spoke, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He turned his head and saw that the young man had come out of the room at some point. He was sitting in a wheelchair with the cold wind blowing in. He was as gloomy as a ghost from the underworld. Gu Chengfeng had always been bold, but this time, he could not help but feel his hair stand on end. The sweet potato in his hand dropped. Gu Jiao looked at him calmly, then looked away and continued to roast the meat. "What are you roasting?" the young man asked. "Bacon," Gu Jiao said. "I want to eat too," the young man said. Gu Jiao flipped the meat. "I'll send it in when it's done." The young man refused. "No, I want to eat here." There were steps from the house to here. He could not go down by himself. Gu Chengfeng composed himself and walked over. He carried him down the steps with his wheelchair and pushed him to the fire. "It's windy here. You can go in after a while," Gu Chengfeng kindly reminded him. The young man did not respond. Instead, he looked at Gu Jiao, who was seriously roasting meat. "Why are you wearing a mask? Are you ugly? Can't you see people?" Gu Chengfeng straightened his back. "Hey! How can you say that? Who's ugly?" the young man mocked. "If you're not ugly, why are you covering your face?" Gu Chengfeng wanted to beat him up. Gu Chengfeng's face turned cold and he snorted. "We like to. If covering your face means you don't have the face to see people, then are you sitting in a wheelchair without legs?" As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Chengfeng felt the young man's expression stiffen. Gu Chengfeng suddenly realized that he might have said something wrong. He opened his mouth to say something, but it was too late. The young man slowly pulled up the corners of his lips and smiled mockingly. Then, under Gu Chengfeng's somewhat guilty and shocked gaze, he raised his pale hand and pulled away the blanket covering his legs. A gust of cold wind blew past, blowing up his empty trousers. The military report of the victory at the frontier fortress arrived at the palace as early as the beginning of December. The emperor and the civil and military officials all breathed a sigh of relief. The remnants of the previous dynasty colluded with the pirates and the Chen army, causing the 2 borders of the Zhao kingdom to be at war at the same time. The Zhao kingdom was attacked from both sides. They also heard that the old Marquis and Princess Ning had been captured. Originally, no one had much confidence in this battle. But they did not expect the Gu army to win so quickly. The emperor began to look forward to the return of Princess Ning and Gu Chongqing, Tang Weishan, the old Marquis, and the soldiers. Of course, there was also the little godly doctor. He was the one who gave the imperial edict to let the little godly doctor out of the capital. At that time, he really did not expect the little godly doctor to go to the frontier fortress. If it were not for the news from Yuegu City that there were 2 officials sent by Empress Dowager Zhuang with the token of Ranshou Palace, he would still be in the dock. If he had known that she was going to such a dangerous place, he would not have given her the imperial edict to leave the city. Only the heavens knew that his imperial mother hated him to death. He had not seen her for 3 days. Not here yet. Not here yet. The emperor sat restlessly in the imperial study. Soon, soon. They said that they will arrive in a few days. Eunuch Wei said with a smile. The emperor looked at him with hidden bitterness. You said that last time. Eunuch Wei smiled embarrassedly. Isn't it because the mountain was blocked by heavy snow and they suddenly could not leave? The weather was colder than when they left, and the mountain was blocked by heavy snow more often. Originally, according to the speed of the army's rapid march, they should have arrived in the capital on the 20th. But day after day, even after the new year, there was still no sign of the army. The emperor slumped back in his chair. If the little godly doctor does not return, I fear that Imperial Mother will ignore us for the rest of her life. The emperor was wrong. Jiao Jiao did not return. Empress Dowager Zhuang did not want to pay attention to this foolish son of hers. He actually took her Jiao Jiao to the frontier fortress. How did she not suffocate him with a blanket? In Bai Shui Alley, the family was also waiting for Gu Jiao to return. Each day felt like a year. The night that Gu Jiao left, they all went to sleep. It was only the next day that Xiao Hang told them that Gu Jiao had gone to the frontier fortress. Yao Shi almost fainted on the spot. The frontier fortress was at war. How could her daughter go to that kind of place? Gu Yan was used to Gu Jiao's existence. When she suddenly left, Gu Yan felt as if he had been cut in half and taken away. Gu Xiaoshan was also very worried and sad. He grew up with Gu Jiao. He spent the most time with Gu Jiao and the shortest time apart. Therefore, he was the one who was not used to it. Little Jing Kong woke up and found that Gu Jiao was not there. He almost cried. Then he saw the letter that Gu Jiao left for him. Then he held back his tears. Jiao Jiao was not in the capital. It was useless for him to cry. He wanted to keep his tears and cry for Jiao Jiao when he came back. Xiao Hang was now working in both the Imperial Hanlin Academy and the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice was more informed than the Imperial Hanlin Academy. The Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of War were the first to know if there was any movement on the front line. Whether it was for official business or for personal reasons, Xiao Hang spent more time in the Ministry of Justice than in the Imperial Hanlin Academy. He opened countless letters. Is the mountain blocked by the heavy snow again? Minister Xing asked Xiao Hang, who was sorting out the letters, as he wrote the memorials. Xiao Hang put away the letters and said in his usual tone, "Yes. They were delayed in Congzhou." Minister Xing frowned and said, "Congzhou is at least 7 or 8 days away from here. I'm afraid the army won't be able to come back before the New Year." The day after tomorrow was New Year's Eve. Even if the army didn't stop, they wouldn't be able to come back to the capital. Xiao Hang looked at the flying snow outside the window and showed a thoughtful expression. The border was bitterly cold and smoky, but the capital was not affected by the war. The streets and alleys were full of peddlers and soldiers, shops, and crowds. It was as prosperous as a brocade. Every house in Puaishui Alley hung red lanterns and pasted window flowers and couplets. Their house also pasted them. This year, Lin Qingye and Feng Lin both went back to Yuzhou to celebrate the New Year. There were many people in the house, but it still felt cold and cheerless. They didn't know if it was because the two of them were missing, or because Gu Jiao was missing. The little loudspeaker didn't blabber anymore. His great-aunt also didn't play mahjong with the neighbors. Madame Yao's youngest son was 3 months old, but he was very obedient. He didn't cry or make a fuss. It was as if there was no baby at home. Little Jing Kong stood at the doorstep. His small arms were stretched out behind his back. His small body fluttered and his small head looked at the alleys on both sides. Jiao Jiao. He wanted to Jiao Jiao. The sound of a carriage came from the door. Little Jing Kong excitedly ran out with his short legs. After running for a while, he realized that it was his bad brother-in-law who came back. Little Jing Kong's small face darkened. He said disappointedly, "Why is it you?" Xiao Heng got out of the carriage and tapped his forehead. "Why isn't it me?" "Humph." Little Jing Kong turned his face away. "Let's go," Xiao Heng said to him. Little Jing Kong slowly followed behind him. He looked back 3 times with every step. Xiao Heng walked in front. He didn't need to look back to know what he was doing. Stop looking. "Jiao Jiao won't come back today." Little Jing Kong asked, "Why?" Xiao Heng said, The heavy snow has sealed the mountain. The army can't leave. Little Jing Kong asked, "Can Jiao Jiao come back tomorrow?" Xiao Heng said, "I don't know." Little Jing Kong asked, "What about the day after tomorrow?" "The day after tomorrow is New Year's Eve. It's my birthday. Can Jiao Jiao come back in time to celebrate with me?" Xiao Heng said, "You weren't born on New Year's Eve." Little Jing Kong put his hands on his waist and stomped his feet. "The abbot said that my birthday is on New Year's Eve. That's New Year's Eve. Jiao Jiao also celebrated my birthday on New Year's Eve." Xiao Heng smiled. He didn't argue with him. Instead, he stopped and rubbed his little head that had grown some hair. "Let's go in." Early the next morning, little Jing Kong sat on the threshold. He waited from dawn to dusk. He waited until he became a light shui, but Jiao Jiao still didn't come back. Gu Yan walked over and led the little guy in. After midnight, it would be New Year's Eve. The army was still trapped in the snowy mountains of Congzhou. It was destined that they wouldn't come back this year. At night, the family sat by the fire in the central room. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door in the front yard. They were all startled. "Jiao Jiao." Little Jing Kong was the first to rush out. However, it wasn't Gu Jiao Jiao who came. It was Granny Zhou. She came to deliver dumplings. "Thank you, Granny Zhou." Little Jing Kong politely took the basket and thanked her. He carried the basket back to the central room. As soon as he sat down, there was another knock on the door. This time, it was Gu Xiaoshun who rushed out. Gu Yan also wanted to rush out, but he was a little sickly boy. He couldn't outrun the two of them. Unfortunately, it wasn't Gu Jiao Jiao this time. It was Aunt Lu. Aunt Lu came to deliver spring rolls. When the door was knocked on for the third time, Secret Guard rushed out. He received a murderous look from his young master. Either he opened the door or he died. So cruel. "Master Zhao, thank you." Secret Guard carried the basket of duck eggs back to the central room. Everyone sighed in unison. The door of the courtyard was ajar. Gu Jiao Jiao didn't need to knock on the door to return to her own home. Therefore, everyone knew clearly that it wasn't Gu Jiao who came. However, they still couldn't help but look forward to it. "Go to sleep," Xiao Heng said to everyone. Everyone returned to their own rooms with heavy hearts. It seemed that this New Year's Eve, Jiao Jiao really couldn't come back. Xiao Lulang tidied up the central room. He wasn't sleepy for the time being, so he went to the study to read for a while. It was still the letter of credence from the Yen Kingdom. He was almost halfway through it. However, he couldn't continue reading tonight. New Year's Eve used to be the most important day in his life. It was the day he came to this world, and it was also the day he died in that fire. Coincidentally, it was also midnight. Xiao Lulang looked at the hourglass on the wall. It was midnight again. He closed the book in his hand and went to the quiet courtyard. He looked at the swing that Gu Jiao personally made and was a little lost in thought. Dong! Something hit the door of the courtyard. Xiao Lulang came back to his senses. He frowned and walked towards the door. Senior servant Fong bolted the door before going to bed. Xiao Lulang paused for a moment and then took down the bolt. He opened the vermilion door, and a biting cold wind and snow poured in. After the wind and snow filled the sky, a small figure dressed in green sat against the wall on the threshold. One of her slender legs was bent, and the hand holding the horsewhip was on her knee. Her black hair was messed up by the wind and snow, and her lips were dry and cracked. She was covered in wind and rain and looked a little embarrassed. She leaned against the corner of the wall and gasped for breath. She raised her head and looked deeply at him with her eyes that were still clear despite being covered in wind and sand. The corners of her lips curved and she said, "Happy birthday, Lord Xiao." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428262/1091927220. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 524. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found online will be available here. When she said this, her chest rose and fell slightly. Although she tried her best to calm her breathing, she was still out of breath. It could be seen how hard she had been running all the way here. She didn't even have the strength to stand up, which was why she bumped into the door with a loud thud. She didn't want Xiao Hang to see her in such a sorry state, so she sat on the hard threshold with a calm look. She leaned against the cold corner of the wall, but she didn't know that her tiredness was written all over her face. Even so, when she looked at him, her eyes were still shining. The wind and snow were raging between heaven and earth, and the cold wind was whistling. Xiao Heng's heart seemed to be filled with a boiling heat wave. His blood was rushing rapidly, but he held his breath. He looked at her in disbelief, and his deep eyes clearly reflected her sorry figure. The snow in Ji City sealed the mountains, and the 100,000 soldiers were unable to advance. However, she crossed the mountains alone, braved the strong wind and cold snow, and appeared in front of him on his birthday. Xiao Hang was well-read and had a belly full of classics, but at this moment, he couldn't find the right words to describe his feelings. He suddenly felt a little upset and even a little painful. He didn't say anything, but the look in his eyes said it all. It was just a birthday that he didn't care about. Why did she rush back? Why didn't she wait for the wind and snow to pass? Why didn't she go with the imperial court's army? Why, what else could it be? It was just something that he didn't care about, but someone cared about it for him. Xiao Heng's heart was moved, but there was no change in his expression. He quickly took off his outer robe, squatted down, and wrapped the outer robe with his body temperature around Gu Jiao's body. Gu Jiao's body was enveloped by a huge wave of warmth, followed by his unique manly aura and delicate fragrance. She sniffed and said with a little nasal voice that was frozen, "You smell so good." Xiao Hang looked at the tip of her nose, which was red from the cold. "You're so cold. Can you still smell my fragrance?" "Yes, it smells good," Gu Jiao said with certainty. Xiao Hang was originally looking at her disheveled appearance and thinking about the risks and hardships she had faced along the way. His mood was a little complicated and heavy, but after her interruption, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xiao Hang brought in the red tasseled spear that she had placed beside her leg. He also untied her small basket. With one hand around her back and the other around her knees, he gently lifted her up. "I can go," Gu Jiao said. She didn't forget that he was still lame. When they were at home, she didn't even let him carry her in little Jing Kong. "I can leave too," Xiao Hang said. Gu Jiao blinked and looked at him. Xiao Hang stood up with her in his arms. She could feel the strength in his arms. Compared to when she left the capital, he was stronger and had the strength of a grown man. Gu Jiao looked at his legs again and was surprised to find that he could walk very well. Gu Jiao made a sound of surprise. "Your legs aren't lame anymore?" "No." A certain person turned back into a little lame in a second. In reality, he had recovered a long time ago. After resolving the misunderstanding with Princess Xianyang, he was able to walk freely the next day. He had originally planned on giving her a pleasant surprise on her birthday, but a certain girl had turned around and ran away. Very good. She had to pay the price. When Gu Jiao left the capital, it was autumn and she didn't wear much. Now that it was late winter, her cotton clothes didn't weigh much. Xiao Heng hugged her even tighter. The little guy at home was already 3 months old and didn't need to drink milk at night. The wet nurse didn't need to live here anymore. Yao Shi brought the little guy back to their original room and left the east room for Gu Jiao. Yu Ye came every day to clean it and changed the bedding. Xiao Hang carried her into the room and placed her on a cushioned chair. Sit for a while. I'll go burn a charcoal brazier for you. After saying this, he turned around and went to the kitchen. He lit some straw and firewood in the hearth. After they were burning, he put in the silver charcoal. The silver charcoal had been sent from the palace. It was all high-quality smokeless charcoal. It was very easy to light and was very resistant to burning. While waiting for the silver charcoal to burn, he poured some water into the pot and cooked a bowl of noodles with vegetables and egg. He also cut a few pieces of sausage and bacon. When the silver charcoal was done, the noodles were also ready. He carried the noodles to the east room. Gu Jiao lay on the table drowsily. She wasn't just tired. She was completely exhausted. Xiao Heng gently touched her forehead. It wasn't hot. He was slightly relieved and said, "Eat something first before you sleep." Gu Jiao vaguely replied. She hadn't eaten anything for a day and night and was indeed hungry. She gave a small yawn and picked up some vegetables with her chopsticks to put into her mouth. Then, with a shudder, she woke up. After Xiao Hang brought the brazier in, he remembered that there was still a horse outside. He went to lead the horse in and tied it to the old chancellor's stable. His movements were very light and didn't wake anyone up. When he returned to the east room, he saw that Gu Jiao was no longer sleepy. There was nothing that could be done. Her husband's dark cuisine was too refreshing. The effect was comparable to essential balm. Gu Jiao looked at her husband's handsome face. Adhering to the principle of being a feast for the eyes, she finished a bowl of noodles that tasted indescribable. There wasn't even a drop of soup left. Xiao Hang poured her a cup of warm water to dispel the grease. Was the journey hard? It wasn't hard. I'm not going to war. I'm just going to be a doctor. As soon as she finished speaking, a dagger fell out of her sleeve with a clang. It was the dagger of the Chen Guarong family. It was one of the spoils of war in ancient Moon City. Gu Jiao blinked. If I'm not embarrassed, it's others who are embarrassed. She bent down to pick up the dagger without changing her expression. With another clang, a sleeve arrow fell out. It was the hidden weapon of the Tang family's archers. It was one of Tang Yueshan's personal treasures. Her face didn't turn red, and her heart didn't skip a beat. She calmly picked up the sleeve arrow. Just as she put the arrow and dagger on the table, she accidentally touched the small basket. The small basket fell on the table, and the things inside fell out. Darts, battle axes, meteor hammers, 9 section whips. Xiao Heng's eyes became very dangerous. Gu Jiao rolled her eyes. Would you believe me if I said I picked them up? Xiao Heng. Ha. I have something for you. Gu Jiao changed the topic in a second. She took out something tightly wrapped in cloth from the small basket and handed it to him. Open it and take a look. Xiao Hang still wanted to pursue the matter of her going to the battlefield. He originally thought that she went to the border to rescue the old duke who had fallen into the enemy's hands. However, it seemed that she had robbed the entire army of the Chen state. It was obvious that she had been on the battlefield a lot. Gu Jiao didn't give him a chance to pursue the matter. She decisively opened the bundle and handed him a book that exuded a historical aura. Xiao Heng's eyes were immediately attracted. The book was written in the language of the previous dynasty. The language of the current dynasty evolved from the language of the previous dynasty. The font and interpretation were slightly different. Gu Jiao opened the book. Xiao Heng took a closer look. It was filled with the names of the Huangfu family. His eyes paused. A jade disc from the previous dynasty? Yes. Gu Jiao nodded. She had burned down the prince consort's study. The prince consort thought that she had burned the jade disc as well, but she hadn't. She had stolen it. The Great Li dynasty had ruled for 300 years. After that, it had been secretly inherited for another 200 years. This Huangfu family genealogy recorded every member of the imperial family of the previous dynasty. It had great research and archaeological value. This kind of ancient book was as attractive to Hanlin officials as a divine weapon was to peerless experts. Xiao Heng's eyes moved slightly. How did you get it? Gu Chengfeng stole it. Gu Jiao immediately threw the blame to him. Gu Chengfeng, who was sleeping with his sword in the snow mountain, sneezed fiercely. Do you like it? Gu Jiao looked at him. Xiao Heng nodded. Yes, I like it. This book might have been exchanged with her life. How could he not like it? The book was very light, but it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in his hands. Gu Jiao looked at him with a pair of clear and bright eyes. She looked somewhat obedient. If the soldiers of the Chen kingdom who had been killed by her were here, their jaws would drop. Was this still the cruel and cold-blooded god of death? This was a little white rabbit. And this. Gu Jiao took out a small metal box the size of a palm from her purse. I heard that the pine smoke ink of the Chen kingdom's imperial family is the best ink in the world. Try using it to draw. Green ink is not bad. Unfortunately, there are only 2 pieces. Prince Bo has a master who makes brushes. He made a new one for me. Gu Jiao continuously took out small gifts from the small basket on her back. He didn't know how many things she had in there. Xiao Heng stared at her deeply. Every time she took out a small gift, his eyes would deepen. After she took out a small gift for the umpteenth time, he finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He gently clasped one of her wrists and pulled her into his arms. Gu Jiao was caught off guard. Her small head bumped into his warm chest. His drumming heartbeat passed through the thick material of his clothes and into her ears. Her ears were burning from the sound of his thumping. The surroundings suddenly seemed to be quiet. Only each other's breathing and heartbeat could be heard. Are you hurt? He asked in a hoarse voice. Digression. Writer's block is a little bad. Get up tomorrow to write. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1091691111. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 525. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. If she wasn't injured, would he let me see the pentacle? Gu Jiao's eyes widened. She shook her head in his arms. No. Absolutely not. Being sick doesn't count as being injured. She didn't lose a single hair. Xiao Heng felt the furry little head in his arms turn around, tickling his heart. He took a deep breath and held Gu Jiao's little shoulder to help her sit up straight. Then he looked into her eyes without blinking. You really aren't injured? Gu Jiao met his gaze calmly. I'm really not injured. She would never admit that she had almost died several times. She had even been frozen into a small ice sculpture on the ice field and had fallen seriously ill. Didn't Xiao Heng know her well? Even if she poked a hole in the sky, she would never feel guilty. But she had changed the topic too quickly. It was impossible that nothing had happened on the frontier. Xiao Heng asked directly, "Where are you injured?" Xiao Heng asked directly. Gu Jiao wouldn't be tricked by him. I'm not injured anywhere. If you have the ability, you can guess that I was almost frozen into a small ice sculpture. Or that I almost died from a small epidemic. How could you guess? If she hadn't experienced it herself, Gu Jiao wouldn't have guessed it herself. Gu Jiao saw that he still didn't believe her. She simply spread her arms and leaned against the back of the chair. She used her trump card. Why don't you check it? Xiao Heng looked at her deeply. Suddenly, he stood up from his chair and leaned over her. He had one hand on the armrest of the chair, and his tall body pressed down on her. His other hand held onto her soft waist, and with a trace of a man's danger he said, "Are you sure you want me to check, Jiao Jiao?" That sound of Jiao Jiao made Gu Jiao's ears go limp. She stared blankly at his handsome face that was inches away from hers, feeling his scorching breath. The warmth of his palms was transmitted to her waist through the fabric of her clothes, and her originally cold waist seemed to be on fire in an instant. He didn't have much strength, but it was this kind of domineering and restrained feeling that made it hard for people to resist. Gu Jiao blinked her eyes. She suddenly reached out her hand and hugged his waist that was filled with masculine strength. He took a deep breath. "Jiao Jiao," Gu Jiao whispered. "Jiao Jiao wants it." "What?" Jiao Jiao's voice. Gu Jiao hugged his waist tightly and used the strength of her arm to gently lift her body. Their breaths were almost touching. Xiao Heng's large hand that was holding her slender waist suddenly tightened. He hugged her soft body. His arm supported her back and his palm held the back of her head, not letting her feel any force. "Jiao Jiao, what do you want? Why aren't you saying anything? Are you shy?" Xiao Heng didn't wait for Gu Jiao's reply. He gently raised his head and saw that Gu Jiao had fallen asleep leaning on his arm and palm. Xiao Heng. Gu Jiao was indeed exhausted. There was no need to mention how difficult it was to climb the snowy mountains. After leaving the mountains, she had to travel day and night without stopping. Every time she stopped at a relay station, she would change the strongest horse. However, the horse could be changed, but the rider could not be changed. She hadn't slept well for many days. Xiao Heng slowly carried her and carefully placed her on the bed. In fact, she was so exhausted that she wouldn't wake up no matter what. Xiao Heng's movements were still gentle. Xiao Heng took off her shoes and coat, took off her hair tie, and pulled the quilt over her. He tucked in every corner of the quilt and wrapped her small body tightly. Then, he looked at her emotionally, bent down, and gently kissed her forehead. At dawn, little Jing Kong woke up as usual. Bad brother-in-law wasn't around. This wasn't strange as his bad brother-in-law woke up earlier than him. Today was New Year's Eve. It was a pity that Jiao Jiao didn't come back. He was so listless that he didn't even bother to wear his new clothes. He slowly put on a set of old clothes and walked out with his head drooping. He habitually walked around Gu Jiao's room first before going to wash up. He was like a soulless puppet as he slowly walked into the room. He walked around the bed, turned around, and went out. He picked up a small toothbrush made of a ponytail in the backyard. As he brushed, his slow mind suddenly had an image. There was someone on the bed. Jiao Jiao. Yeah. Little Jing Kong didn't even want his small cup and toothbrush. He turned around and ran towards Gu Jiao's east room. At this time, Yao Shi, Gu Yan, and Gu Xiaoshun also came over from the east room's door. It wasn't strange for Yao Shi and Gu Xiaoshun to wake up early, but Gu Yan, who always liked to sleep in, also woke up. Probably because of the twins' reaction, Gu Yan actually woke up in the middle of the night. Then he went to Gu Jiao's side and lay down. Smelling his sister's scent and holding his sister's hand, he finally felt that the half of him that was cut off and taken away had returned to him. Jiao little Jing Kong had just opened his mouth when Gu Yan covered his mouth. Little Jing Kong anxiously looked at Jiao Jiao, who was sleeping soundly on the bed. He grunted a few times and gave up struggling. Although he really wanted to Jiao Jiao, he couldn't make a fuss about Jiao Jiao. "Let's go out first?" Yao Shi whispered. Everyone nodded and reluctantly went to the central room to sit down. Nanny Fong excitedly walked in from the back door of the central room and asked in a low voice, "I just heard the young master and Master Hua say that eldest miss is back?" The old chancellor had been very worried about Gu Jiao, so after dawn, Xiaoheng first told Yao Shi the news of Gu Jiao's return, and then went to report to the old chancellor that she was safe. Yao Shi also couldn't hide the excitement in her heart. She nodded with a smile and said in a low voice, "She's back." Nanny Fong put her hands together and said, "Amit Ba, thank the heavens." Before Gu Jiao left, she left a letter for the family. In the letter, she said that she was going to be a doctor. Except for Xiao Hang and Gu Yan, everyone else believed her. However, even if she was going to be a doctor, it was still very dangerous. In the land of war, even the old marquis was captured. Gu Jiao was only a girl, so protecting herself was the most worrying problem for everyone. Now that they saw that she was back safely, everyone's hanging hearts finally returned to their stomachs. Gu Jiao slept all the way until the afternoon. After running around for so long, she was in a trance when she opened her eyes. She almost thought that she had transmigrated again. Otherwise, how could she wake up in such a warm place? Then she saw 1, 2, 3, 4 little heads sticking in through the crack of the door. They were little Jing Kong, Gu Xiaoshun, Gu Yan, and Gu Xiaobao, who just turned 3 months old. Gu Xiaobao was held in front of Gu Yan's chest with both hands. His pair of black grape-like eyes were rolling around, and he was sucking on his fingers. The whole room was filled with the sound of his fingers sucking. Gu Jiao sat up. Little Jing Kong's eyes lit up. He pushed open the door with a bang and was the first to rush to the bed. "Jiao, you're awake." Gu Yan snorted and said, "Heh, Jiao didn't wake up. She's sleeping." The stinky little monk ran so fast. "Umph." Little Jing Kong ignored Brother Yen. Jiao was back, and he only talked to Jiao. Little Jing Kong came to the bedside and plunged into Gu Jiao's arms. He shook his little head cutely and said, "Jiao, I missed you. I missed you so much." He just wanted to act cute, but as he did, he felt a lump in his throat. He felt wronged. He hadn't seen Jiao for so many days, and he felt that he had wasted his childhood. He wanted to start all over again in these 3 months. "Your hair has grown long," Gu Jiao said. When he left, he still had a buzz cut. Now, he had a small mushroom hairstyle. After the new year, he should be able to get a small ponytail. "Yes." Little Jing Kong replied pitifully. He didn't want to talk about his hair now. "Jiao, remember to bring me along the next time you go out. I want to go with you." Gu Yan walked in with Gu Xiaobao. He glanced at the little guy and said, "What do you think that is? Can a child go there?" Little Jing Kong stood up from Gu Jiao's arms and looked at Gu Yan with his hands on his hips. "I will grow up." Gu Yan loved to bicker with the little guy. "You can't go there even if you grow up. It's a war zone, and it's very dangerous. A weak scholar like you can only stay in the capital." These words successfully silenced little Jing Kong. Gu Yan thought that she had finally won the argument with the little fellow. Who would have thought that after a long while, little Jing Kong suddenly said in a hurt tone, "So, did Jiao go to a very dangerous place?" He was a child, and his family wanted to protect him. Naturally, they wouldn't tell him that Gu Jiao went to a war zone. They only said that it was a frontier fortress. Gu Jiao also said so in the letter. Little Jing Kong thought that it was a very, very far away visit. Gu Yan didn't expect that his bickering with the little fellow would make a slip of the tongue. He cleared his throat and said, Okay, Jiao has returned safely. You don't have to worry anymore." He said it as if he wasn't worried. Jiao. Little Jing Kong looked at Gu Jiao solemnly. "Yes." Gu Jiao was a little confused by this sudden reaction. She wondered if the little guy was frightened. War was a very scary thing for such a young child. She was about to touch his little head to comfort him and tell him that she was really fine. Just like Gu Yan said, he didn't have to worry about her. Little Jing Kong suddenly looked at her and said very seriously, "Jiao, don't go to dangerous places in the future. If you must go, I'll go for you. If you must go to war, I'll fight for you." Digression. Little Jing Kong's feelings for Jiao Jiao were much deeper than Jiao Jiao thought. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1091618553. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.